Good evening. Colerain Township on September 13th, 2022. I almost said 2023. It is 6 p.m. and it is time to start our Township Board of Trustees meeting. Mr. Baker, attendance please.
Ms. Orch?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. Mr. Weckbach, are there any reasons, and if so, please give the ORC exception to go into the executive session this evening?
Yes, I would recommend that the board motion to go into executive session in accordance with section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Codes, sections G1, to consider the appointment, employment, compensation of public employees or officials, with section 3, or G3, which is conferences with the attorney regarding disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending or imminent litigation, and with G4, which is preparing for to discuss collective bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation.
All right, you indicated that obviously the Township legal counsel will be there. Are there any other folks that you will be inviting to this executive session?
I believe we'll have a couple members of Township Staff in attendance.
Okay.
I would motion that we go into executive session for the reasons put forth by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
None.
None.
All right, through the vote, please.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. We are entering into executive session at 6:02 p.m. and we'll adjourn, or we'll re-adjourn,
Come back.
It will come back, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. After that, thank you. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Time as we return on September 13th, 2022 to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, Colerain Township, from executive session. Mr. Baker, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Orch?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. Is there anything to report, Mr. Weckbach?
Nothing to report.
All right. So then we will now open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just take a moment in our own thoughts to consider those issues and petitions that are near and dear to our own hearts. Okay, we have been provided with a series of minutes from previous meetings. Mr. Baker?
Thank you, Board. First, you have in front of you, or you submitted the minutes from the meeting of August 9th. I was on vacation a couple weeks after that, so it took me a while to put this together. But so I would recommend approval of the minutes of the meeting of August 9th, 2022.
I motion that we approve the August 9th, 2022 minutes.
I'll second.
All right, discussion.
One of those I sent you some corrections on.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion, please?
None.
All right, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Baker will call the vote, please.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0 for those minutes.
I also have the minutes from the special meeting that was held on August 17th, 2022. I was not present at that meeting, so Mr. Weckbach was the acting fiscal officer, I guess you could say. But I would recommend approval of those minutes.
I motion that we approve the August 17th, 2022 minutes.
I second.
All right, any discussion?
None.
Hearing and seeing none, we'll move straight to the vote. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0, and for
And finally,
trifecta?
we have the minutes for the meeting of Board of Trustees on August 23rd, 2022.
I motion that we approve the August 23rd, 2022 minutes.
I second.
Any discussion?
None.
Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Baker will move to the vote, please.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
And that passes 3-0. That brings us up to the part of the program known as presentations. Joining us first will be Chief Walls. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening to the board and everyone in attendance. I'm here tonight to introduce our newest career firefighter and swear him in. At this time, I'd like to have Jack Hughes come forward, please. Jack is a graduate of Colerain High School. He's also a graduate of our recruit class training program here in Colerain Township. He's going to be pinned tonight by his father, Craig. His family's in attendance. I'm going to have Jack introduce his family.
So this is my dad, Craig Hughes, my mom right there, Krista Hughes, my brother behind her, Leo Hughes, and my sister, Lou Hughes.
He wasn't expected to be doing any public speaking tonight, but we're getting him prepared. Raise your right hand. Say after me. I, Jack Hughes, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
And I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and its bylaws.
and its bylaws.
I will abide by the Colerain Fire and EMS mission statement,
I will abide by the Colerain Fire mission statement,
values,
values,
code of ethics, standard operating guidelines,
and operating guidelines,
and the township's policies and procedures.
and the township's policies and procedures.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of firefighters
in and for Colerain Township,
and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hampton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Hughes. All right, now we have a presentation by Chief Cody introducing and swearing in newly hired police officer Cody Lee. Evening, Chief.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everybody, especially my wife. Hi, Ella. Okay, before you tonight, we have Cody Lee. Cody Lee is a 2013 graduate of Edgewood High School in Trenton, Ohio. Cody's also a 2019 graduate of Butler Tech Police Academy. Prior to coming to Colerain Township, Cody served with North College Hill Police Department, the Village of Blanchester, and Ross Township Police Department. Unfortunately, tonight, Cody's girlfriend, Jalen, is a little under the weather, and she's not able to be here. Jalen is, let's see, I guess that would make her 8 months pregnant. And Jalen is due, and Jalen and Cody will have their first child together October 30th. So tonight, standing in for Jalen is the lovely Sergeant Jamie Penn. All right, you ready, buddy? Yes. All right. Say it after me. I, Cody Lee.
I, Cody Lee,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution of the State of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
of the United States of
of
America,
the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and its bylaws.
and its bylaws.
I will abide by Colerain Police Department
I will abide by Colerain Police Department
mission and value statement,
mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
and police department policy and procedure.
and police department policy and procedure.
And I will faithfully discharge
And I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duty of police officer
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hampton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir, and welcome aboard. Now we have another presentation by Chief Cody introducing and swearing in newly hired Sergeant Michael Stockmeyer.
Front and center, Michael. This is something that I've been waiting for quite some time, and poor Mike has been having to listen to me talk and try to get him to step into this role for way too many years. Mike started with the police department in December of 2008. Mike graduated from the LaSalle High School, thank you, in 2002 in the University of Cincinnati, in 2014, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Mike here is supported by multiple family and friends. He said there's too many here for him to possibly name, so he appreciates every one of your support. Fun fact about Mike Stockmeyer is he grew up playing hockey and he was an avid speed skater. Nick, if you could stand up here. Mike will be pinned tonight by his wife, Nikki.
Where are we at for pictures? You guys want to step over? Is that good? You good? All right, Mike, you ready? Next side. I, Mike Stockmeyer. I, Mike Stockmeyer. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will uphold. That I will uphold. The Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution of the United States of America. And the Constitution of the State of Ohio. And the Constitution of the State of Ohio. And its bylaws. And its bylaws. I will abide by Colerain Police Department. I will abide by the Colerain Police Department. Mission and value statement. Mission and value statement. Code of ethics. Code of ethics. Rules and regulations. Rules and regulations. Police Department policy and procedure. Police Department policy and procedure. And I will faithfully discharge. And I will faithfully discharge. The duties of sergeant. The duties of sergeant. In and for Colerain Township. In and for Colerain Township. Hamilton County. Hamilton County. State of Ohio. State of Ohio. Best of my ability. To the best of my ability. So help me God. So help me God. Congratulations.
Yay!
I'll just stick him with it. He doesn't care.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out. We're going to let the room clear a little bit here and resume our regularly scheduled program. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and showing your support for the newest members of our family.
I don't think that man that was here before the meeting is still here.
All right, now, item D is a presentation by Daryl Yates and Amy Wells from Northwest Local School District on the Northwest Local School District Facility Master Plan. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having us tonight. We don't normally clear a room like that. But I am Daryl Yates, superintendent for the school district, and I'm here with...
I'm sorry, we need to hit the microphone, I guess.
Good.
Thank you.
I am Daryl Yates, the superintendent for this Northwest Local School District,
I'm Amy Wells, treasurer.
and we are thankful for the opportunity to be here tonight and share with you some information about the district. But before I begin, I just want to thank the trustees, I want to thank the township and the administrators, as well as the police and fire and all the services. We have a great partnership. We have amazing communication and collaboration, and we share a common vision that great communities and great schools are inextricably tied together, and we thank you for the continued partnership that we have with all of you. With that, we wanted to give you an update on where we are with our master facility plan. So in 2014, we had a master facility plan on file with the state of Ohio. It's always on file, updating and continuing to analyze our facility needs. The plan in 2014 is what was used when we passed a bond issue that built our 3 new elementaries, Taylor, Pleasant Run Elementary, and Struble Elementary. We periodically update that plan, and when we update the plan, we go back to the community with community engagement and get feedback from the community about what they want and expect from the schools. We did that again in 2021 and updated our plan, and our committee took to our Board of Education an updated, revised master facility plan. That updated, revised plan was in 3 phases. So phase 2 of our plan is to address our pre-K-8 needs as a district. So currently we have buildings that were approaching next year a 100-year mark. So Colerain Elementary will turn 100 years in 2023. It was It's outlasted Crosley Field. The Reds have had Crosley Field, Riverfront Stadium, and Great American Ballpark, and we still have kids in Colerain Elementary. So we are excited that our community has brought a plan to the board that will address some of our facility needs. The phase 2 would build a new preschool, replace Colerain Elementary, replace our 3 middle schools with 2 new middle schools, and would update and renovate Montfort Heights Elementary. That would give our pre-K 8 students comparable educational services through all of our district facilities. Our community for phase 3 is looking at the high school phase. That is something that we would go back to our community with continued conversation and update our plan again to really dive into that conversation about whether our community wants 1 or 2 high schools. We have not had consistent data that from any of our surveys that has given us a clear vision, and so we want to make sure that before we put a plan forward with that, we have continued conversation. So we have those 3 phases that our committee came to our board with a plan, and our board approved that plan. Once that plan was approved, then the board had some other decisions to make.
So in July, the Board of Education approved a resolution to proceed with our Phase 2 necessity as recommended by our Community Advisory Team. What this entails is a $175 million bond at 4.98 mils, which is about $14 a month. And we aligned our Phase 2 plan as our Montfort Heights 1997 bonds are rolling off. So the real feel of this bond issue would be under less than 4 mils.
And as we've continued to work with our Board of Education, one of the things that we are always mindful of is being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And so we have entered into a program with the state of Ohio through the Ohio Facilities Commission, which is an ELP program, which allowed us in phase 1 to earn about $16 million in credits. And then with phase 2, we are still in the ELP program. And the estimates for phase 2 are that when that is complete, we could earn anywhere from $30 to $40 million in additional credits for phase 2. The state's program is basically trying to rebuild schools from across the state of Ohio, from the poorest district to the wealthiest district. And so when the state says it's our turn to be in a co-funded project where they will kick in part of the funding, which would be phase 3 for us, the co-funded phase would be cashing in the credits that we've earned up to that point in phase 1 and phase 2, as well as allowing the state to co-fund 22% of that phase 3, making it the most cost-effective way that we could approach this plan for our community. So we wanted to make sure that the township and the administration and all of the residents are aware of the information that we've been presenting. So we appreciate the time tonight to be able to share this information with you and with the audience tonight. And we're more than willing to answer questions if you have any.
Sure. You mentioned that some of the millage, I remember our bond issue passed in '97. Is some of that millage sunsetting at this point?
Yes, it'll end in December.
How much was that? Do you recall?
Approved at 1.15 mils.
So it'd be 498 minus 1.15
Yes.
would be the net of it?
So you're looking 3.86.
I remember way back when there was a model where the poorest districts would get money to rebuild and Northwest was somewhere. Where is Northwest at now in the middle of that?
That's the co-funded
Out of
phase
630
phase 3.
districts?
It's apparent we're close to that number being called.
We were like
But-
400 and something at the time.
But it depends on when the number is called, and you have 3 times to pass a bond issue for
Right.
them to co-fund. So if a district in front of us isn't able to do that, or they do it quicker, then we kind of move up and down the list based on the people in front of us. But we've been hearing that we're within probably 5 years or so of that time happening for the district.
So if you pass something now, you'd have to hope that would kick in the next 3 to 5 years, or it would?
The one on the ballot in November would be to fund phase 2, which would be the preschool.
So
middle
you're
school,
waiting for
elementary.
phase 3 for that to
And
kick in?
Phase 3 would be the co-funded phase, where we would
Okay.
get, the state would kick in the 22% of the project, and we would cash in the credits that
That's
we
been
earned in
going on
phase
a
1
long
and phase
time.
2. Yeah,
That's been around quite a while, that
yeah, we've
formula.
been working through that for many years through the
Yep.
state.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. All right, thank you, Superintendent Yater. I think I said Yates before. I broke my reading glasses about 10 minutes before, and it looked like an S. I apologize.
And I'm glad to hear you're still in regular communication with our new administrator.
Absolutely, we're in constant communication, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is still under presentation section. We have a presentation on Clean Up Colerain Program by Township Administrator Weckbach.
Yes, thank you, Board. Tonight, I wanted to highlight this program because we kicked this off around a year ago, and there's just been some incredible community efforts around this. So, Clean Up Colerain it was established in October 2021, and basically residents have an opportunity to adopt a block. So then after they say, hey, I'm going to be responsible for collecting the litter and trash that accumulates, say, on Niagara Street. They do that over the course of a month, and then they can report back to us how much they've collected. I reach out, or now moving forward, Assistant Director Tawana Moulter will be reaching out to all the folks that have signed up and just ask them to tell us what they're doing and how often they're doing it. We track this externally on a board, and I wanted to share what those numbers looked like. So in the 10 months that this program has been in effect, our volunteers, so these are community members, these are not township staff, it's nothing like that. These volunteers in their spare time have collected over 600 bags of litter, 140 tires, 68 signs, and 8.5 bags of recycling. I think that's an incredible number. I think all those numbers put together, it just shows the hard work that the folks in our community are willing to put to help curb some of the issues that we've been seeing with litter and trash and debris throughout our community. I also wanted to take a moment to kind of share how anybody who's watching can get involved if they would like to. In our agenda packet, you'll actually find the PowerPoint, these slides itself, and so you'll be able to click the link and be able to sign up if you would like. That's just to let us know that you're out there picking up and doing the hard work so that we can recognize you later. And then there are two other items on here that are ways that you can help. So the Colerain Community Association, they actually go out the first and second Saturday of each month to collect up trash and litter along our interchanges. So I've got it listed here. That's Colerain and I-275 on the first Saturday, and on the second Saturday, it's Colerain and Ronald Reagan. I listed Pam Isfort's contact information on there. She's the best person to get in contact with, especially if you're thinking about going but don't know if, hey, maybe this Saturday it's going to get rained out or whatever that is. They'd be the best folks to tell you that it's moving forward or not. And then the other group that does a lot of cleanup events is the Historical Society. They actually host a number of different cemetery cleanup events and restoration events, some of which I've been able to go to, and it's kind of neat to see some of these chemicals and different things that we spray on these headstones that are very old, hundreds of years old. And over time, as water hits it, it helps to oxidize and clean it. And then you go back, a month later, and this headstone that was dark and grimy is now bright and white and beautiful to look at. So it's kind of neat. And that's another group that I would encourage residents to take a look at if they're wanting to find ways to help out with some of these efforts. Finally, I did want to take a moment and just read through this list. These are all the people who to date have signed up and contributed in some way, shape, and form, and I think all of them should be recognized. So that'd be Stephanie and Don Wright, Deanna Rhymes, Compton Recycling with Debbie and Bob Hurst, Raj and Rhina Rajagopal, Jonathan Sexton, Lori McMullen, Nicole Hacker, Patty Eckstein, Glenna Carter, Susan, we don't have her last name, she only gave us her first name, Cookie Evers, the Cochrane family, Greater Northbrook, Karen Arabal, and Don Himberg. And so I think all those folks deserve a round of applause. Yes, thank you. And with that, if the board has any questions on this program, I'm happy to answer them. But I do genuinely appreciate all the hard work that everybody in the community has done to help with this effort.
And thank you to everybody that does help out with it.
And for those that help out, that I know that there are some that aren't on that list, thank you as well. I think some people feel awkward as to just saying, hey, I'm on this list. So I will recognize you as well. And I thank everybody for what they're doing.
I love seeing the CCA's green garbage bags at $2.75. Just saw it Saturday. Thanks for that.
All right, Mr. Weckbach, you ready to present now?
That's right. So the next item on the agenda is another presentation, and this is our strategic goals. So if you all remember, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before that, we had a conversation about what our strategic goals should be for 2023 moving forward. The board tasked staff with putting out a survey, and that's what we did. And so we wanted to share not only what those responses looked like, but also some of the feedback that we received at the town hall that we had last week. So diving right in, we had over 100 responses. So we had 105 to be exact. Some demographics just for context. About 55 was the average age of the respondents. We had more women than males respond. Interestingly enough, we asked the question of, do you live in Colerain? Do you work in Colerain? Do you visit Colerain? And folks could select as many of those as they wanted. So it's not equaling 100, and that's why. But 87% are individuals that live here, and only 5%, for example, don't live or work here, but they just visit. So we're getting a good swath of feedback from a variety of different sources. The other thing that I was particularly interested in, and we shared a map, was, what area of the community do you reside in? And sometimes you would think when you see that question, it would be heavily slanted one way or another. And we're asking folks to self-identify, but I think we got a pretty good distribution of participation from across the community. And I think that is important because Colerain is we're 43 square miles, and the needs in one corner of the community may not be the exact same as the other, but we're going to find some commonality so that we can all move forward together as one Colerain. So one of the questions we had was an open-ended question, just asking individuals, what are their long-term goals? What are the 3 things that they could do? And when I was sort of sifting through what those topics were and what those responses were that we got, there were 4 items that really jumped to the top. A lot of people have specific safety issues that they would like for us to focus on. That runs the gamut of specific police issues to broad police issues to fire and EMS issues. There were some very specific types of development and zoning regulations that were requested, so different types of restaurants and businesses that individuals would like to see come to the area. There was a call for more community engagement through public events. So these would be events like National Night Out or Touch of Trucks, or just having more town halls in general was a theme that I've seen as well. And then, of course, one of the things that I see on a lot of these surveys, and I have in my entire career, is lower taxes. I think that is a good goal for us all to shoot for, especially as we're evaluating what we can afford and what we can do moving forward. We did also want to ask a question as well. So as we're talking about this vision, talking about this goal, what is it that you're wanting to see? How much are you willing for the township to divert from our general budget to make this dream come true? And the average number was about 33%, which is $15 million. So when you're talking numbers, dollars and cents, if we had a project that could really help to make all these things come to fruition within that figure, I think that's what we're seeing here. But this number ran across the board. So you had a good number of folks that also said $0. And then you had some individuals say that they're willing to go as high as 70+% of the budget to make these things happen. So just some helpful context for you all to keep in mind, and data that we got from the survey. So this is what the results looked like. So we asked everyone to kind of rate the existing goals that the township has, as well as the proposed new goals that you all brought up at that trustee meeting about a month ago. They're ranked on the side there in the order of their score. So safe, which is a current goal, was cited as the highest. Clean and beautiful came in number 2. Financial health was after that. Continuing improvement, capital assets, and prosperous were sort of the order that these all fell in. The ones that didn't necessarily make the list were green. And I kind of combined clean and beautiful because I feel like if you are focusing on improving the look of the township, which is the way that goal currently reads, you can focus on that by both making efforts in terms of beautification and making efforts to address litter. Same thing with capital and assets. I think if we're focusing on improving our capital, we can also focus on improving our assets at the same time, and there's some unique distinctions between the two. And so to the extent that as a board, we were potentially looking to stick to 6 goals, I think that this would be a good mixture based off the feedback we observed, because when you're looking at these scores here, The green goal really did score very poorly across the community at 2.87, which if you're on a Likert scale is less than okay. So if okay is the middle, that'd be about a 3. So as you all are aware, we also had the town hall last week. This was just an opportunity for residents to engage in roundtable conversations around some of these proposed goal areas. And we've got a full report of all the different items that were suggested, but the ones that were kind of rising to the top that were actually hitting more than one table as well were additional sidewalks, more police, finding ways to retain our fire employees, better signage and gateways, and traffic calming. So I know that those are some frequent things that we hear at these meetings as well, and it seems that that has been resonating throughout the community. So that's kind of a summary of everything here. I think in terms of next steps, I'd love to get feedback from you all about legislative priorities. So if what I was proposing around those 6 goal areas makes sense, I can certainly draft a resolution for adoption or consideration at the next meeting to potentially be adopted finally at the October meeting. We plan on having the draft budget book with the 2023 initiatives at the 11/8 meeting and then final adoption in December. We got a lot of really good discrete feedback, and I know that there are a lot of specific initiatives that are going to be coming from the town hall and these surveys that we're going to be fitting into the goal areas, assuming that the goal areas align with what those feedback and initiatives were. So with that, just want to thank everyone that participated in some way, shape, or form, and turn it over to you all for feedback and questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for, I think a couple meetings ago I asked to put this out in circle and some type of survey, not that this would be the end-all be-all, because it's not purely scientific, but it gives us more data and more information to consider, as does the town hall meeting, and I appreciate going that extra mile to get as much input as we possibly can in a way that's very easy to understand and read. I appreciate that.
And I would just say, when we had that discussion a couple weeks ago, I mentioned, the big thing that's probably going to happen in '23 is the reconstruction of 2 fire stations. And I think one of our focuses needs to be, how is that going to affect our communities, our response time, what might go around those, how we might also parlay that into some economic development in those areas where they might end up at. I know we haven't settled exactly on where they would go, and then what would happen to the existing buildings. I think that needs to be something it'll be our largest single expenditure in quite a few years, and I think that's something that needs to be on the front burner for '23.
And as a person who really appreciates data, I am super excited to see how those response times improve based off of those new
Well, it's not just that, but what happens to the sites that we leave, and wherever we decide to put the new buildings, what can go around those to complement? I mean, how can we make those areas zoned so that it would complement, having a fire station next door? Whatever that would be, I'm not sure what it is, but that's something that needs to be up front for '23.
I think when we had that discussion, when we discussed safety, and I think everything on our survey sort of went with our general discussion for priorities. So I think we're good.
All right, thank you. Thank you, trustees.
Thank you. Before we go to citizens' address, there's one general announcement I was going to make at the beginning of the meeting and just forgot. And this might be a surprise to some department heads, but beginning next trustee meeting during regularly scheduled meetings, not ones that are special meetings. At 6 p.m., oftentimes we go into an executive session with ORC codes that allow us to do so. Department heads will be in the trustees chamber for feedback and questions from citizens. If they have any issues, any trouble, it'll give citizens an opportunity to, while they're waiting for us to executive session, for them to discuss any items with department heads. And that begins next. I'm fair and
Yes,
Yeah.
at the September 27th meeting.
okay. All right. With that said,
That is news to me, so.
there you go. It's good news. Now to the citizens' address in the order that they appeared. We have first Ms. Sharon. Is it Sligar? Is that right? Okay. From Rural Heights will be speaking. Thank you for coming out this evening.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. On September 2nd, at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning, my pickup truck decided it was going to have a fight with me. So I had to call, my friend had to call 911. I was knocked out. And I wanted to thank Station 26 because when they came and I was wedged between my truck and my wall, even though I was knocked out, I was semi-conscious, I could hear what they were saying. They talked to me the whole time. They told me everything they were going to do. And I really, truly appreciate it. Once I got in the Life Squad, I was able to talk back to them and stuff. And I did ask the guy why he didn't just move my truck so that they could have got me out. He said if he would have moved my truck, he would have ran me over. So I want to thank him for not running me over. That would have added more to it.
Ma'am, that's our policy.
Not to run people over. Thank you so much, so much. But I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the guy. And there was a redheaded kid that was driving the Life Squad. And when we got to the hospital, I did blame him for me getting sick because I got sick. And I told him it was his driving. But it wasn't. I had a concussion. And that was the problem. So I'm sorry to him for blaming him for me getting sick. That wasn't the problem at all. So anyway, I just wanted to tell your new fire chief, whoever he is, that
Chief Walls, you want to? Yeah.
yeah, great group of guys. When I move out of Colerain, I wish I could take them with me. However, the one in the back of the Life Squad with me, he sure did talk a lot. I wanted to name him Jaws because he didn't shut up. But I did. I really appreciate it, and I wanted to thank you guys for their great job that they did.
Okay. Yep. And are you feeling better now, or is that?
Yes, this is a week and a half later.
Okay.
My knees are still, but yeah, they did a fantastic job.
There's some. I know that they appreciate hearing that. There's good men and women in all of our fire and police and EMS and all our public works department, and that's I appreciate so much you coming out here to recognize them.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Continue with your good health.
Next, we have Thomas Paul Bryant. Good evening, sir.
Evening. I want to first congratulate your new hires. My son has been Hamilton County Sheriff's Deputy for 20 years. He just retired from there, and now he works for the Hamilton County Coroner's Investigation. So he works with a lot of the police departments. So I know how hard it is to find good help and their loyalty and so on. I also want to commend you on your programs that you have on keeping the areas looking beautiful, nice, clean up. I hate to rain on that, but I've been coming to the police department and the zoning department since May with pictures and concerns about a resident house that's running a business out of their home. It's 2412 Lynn Fork Drive. It's right on the borderline. It sits on Lynn Fork, but it's on the corner of Miles and Lynn Fork. It's an eyesore, and there's a number of things that's going wrong at that residence that I have to drive by every day, 'cause to get to my house, there's only one way in and one way out. First of all, they're running a business. There's always 3 or 4 utility trailers full of equipment. There's pickup trucks with big totes in them. There's a big truck that's got a tank on the back. The name of the company that's on the side of the truck is K&M Roofing and Sealant. There's, from all the pictures that I've shared with the zoning department and the police, I see no placards on the trucks or the totes that they have showing what's in them or what was in them or showing what the residue that's on them. The other concern is they park in the side yard, the front yard with their vehicles. They park cars and trailers on the street, but they park partially in the median between the sidewalk and the street. The house, when you pull up into their driveway, if they can't fit their vehicle all the way up in, especially the tanker truck that they have, it blocks the sidewalk and the apron. So they're just barely out of the street. At the corner of Lynn Fork and Miles is bus stops for the kids to go and catch the bus. So they have to walk off the sidewalk into the street to get back to the sidewalk to get to the corner. So I do know that last week the police did go out and they found one vehicle that they was able to cite. He said there was no, he called me and told me he didn't see the other vehicles. Well, I said, if you don't go in the morning or in the evening when they're off work or when inclement weather to where they can't go out and do their roofing and ceiling, you'll find the vehicles. And I showed them the pictures and they have the pictures on file. Well, the zoning administrator told me that I had to come here to address the trustees for the next step of what they can do. He's told me that the people that are living there are renters. Well, to me, I don't see what that has to do with anything if they're violating zoning laws by running a business and parking illegally. What that has to do with they're renters, or he said the people that own the house are not even in the state of Ohio. But once again, I don't see where that has any relevance with the stuff that's going on at that house. You're trying to clean up the neighborhood. Now, I've lived in my house for 32 years. Me and my wife have been married for over 48 years. She grew up in the house. When my first house was on Niagara, my second house was on September, and now where I live. And my kids have all grown up. And I just hate seeing this eyesore and seeing the neighborhood go to pot because you have renters that seem to violate all the zoning rules and the parking and stuff. And like I said, I have to drive by it every day. And once again, if you need to see the pictures, you can talk to the administrator of the zoning, and he can share the pictures with you.
Right.
Contact information.
Please?
Can you give your phone number to our administrator so we can follow up?
Sure.
Thank you.
And we will also have police department follow up on that, and Mr. Weckbeck follow up, and they will give us a report back on what's happened with it.
Okay, I appreciate it because like I said, for living there, and that was the main house, but there is another house that they've got concerns about that's on Miles, just right around the corner.
Can you give him that address also?
I'd have to look that one up, but they have it on file here with the zoning department because they said they've had numerous complaints, but the guy's running scrap business. He's got refrigerators and all kinds of stuff. He goes around to everybody's houses and picks up all this stuff. And from what I've been told, which I can't prove it or not because I stopped at the fire department, on the refrigerators and stuff that he gets, he's releasing the Freon into the air. That he's not a license to recover the Freon out of the equipment, air conditioners, refrigerators, and so on.
We'll have Jeff follow
Yeah,
up.
we have an environmental officer, and the police department, Mr. Weckbach, will follow up and give us a report, including your contact information, so that we could follow up with you individually as well. So I appreciate it, you coming out, and we'll see what we can do to get this addressed.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. While Mr. Weckbach is involved with that, next is Stephanie Great. Good evening. I almost said afternoon.
Oh, that's okay. First of all, I'd like to say to Mr. Weckbach, and I believe everyone else that's seated behind me, is the vibe in this room tonight is totally different. And it's very exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to how things are going to come together as a community. And I believe everyone else in this room can feel the same thing. A few things on the agenda this evening. I'll start with public safety, item number 10, and that is to do with abatement and nuisance properties. Since January of 2022, we have 182 notices of violations, which means it's made it to the resolution state. And we recently received a bill from our vendor who cuts abatement, and 30 of those were done. It just seems like a big difference between 182 and 30. I mean, I know that people correct properties and stuff like that, but I just wondered why the great discrepancy in that. Next item would be under public service, item A, a bid that we are taking for, well, the lowest bid we're taking for this. And I was wondering why the township always chooses the lowest. I don't know if the highest is always best. I don't know if the lowest is always best, but I can't remember a time that we've ever split the difference. And I was just wondering why that was. Also, under administration, item A, we're signing, the township has put forth a contract to an employee this evening, and I was wondering if that was something that's going to be the new norm. Will majority of employees now be getting contracts? And what is the negative or the benefit to that to our township and our community? Also under administration, item D, Waycross, we're looking to renew their contract tonight. I compared the two, there's absolutely no difference in them. They're exactly the same. And that contract does not even expire until the end of this, or excuse me, for 6 months. So I was wondering why this was on the agenda at this time. Why we have contracts that have terms and, you know, when they start and when they end, and the township never seems to let that contract ride out. It's always handled way far in advance, and I was just wondering why. And then administration, we have Mr. Solomon, who is interested in becoming an employee of our township. So I Googled him. I didn't really know much about him other than I do like his sense of humor, which kills me to say that. But anywho, he seems like a pretty straight up guy. He has great education. He's well versed from what I can see in zoning and different things like that. And I think he would be an asset to the township. I'm not sure in the aspect of being an employee. I was wondering if the 3 trustees could maybe share with me why they think it would be a good idea for him to be an employee as opposed to a subcontractor or whatever, because we will be paying his insurance, Medicare, Oprahs, all that kind of stuff. So I was just wondering how that benefits the township financially. And also, will he be continuing his other part-time jobs with other municipalities? He does have quite a few on his plate that he is the law director for. And one thing about trash, I know Mr. Weckbach's very dedicated to the Clean Up Colerain and engaging residents to sign up and get involved in their community, but trash is always there. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to do it on a certain day. It's always there 24/7. So I would encourage residents, whether or not you sign up for anything, if you're walking over something, bend over and pick it up. And that also goes to commercial properties and their employees. If you're walking in the parking lot on your way to your shift and you see a bag of trash sitting there, pick it up, please. No one is above picking up trash. And then I would like to have an update on the smoothie place that was going to go in on Springdale Avenue. It's supposed to be a new little plaza next to where Spectrum is. That hasn't developed. I was wondering what that status is. Also, Grippo's, if we could have an update on what they're planning and where that is in development. The old church at 2550, I believe, or excuse me, the old Aldi's at 2550 West Galbraith. That was going to be a church at one time, and I see that that sign is down. And I was just wondering, have they backed out of the deal, or what's going on with that? And then Culver's, we know that's not going to happen. That was at the old Olive Garden in the parking lot by where Big Lots is. And now it's just, they didn't take care of the building when it was a building. Now they don't take care of the lot. And I was just wondering if anything's going on with that. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you. All right. Apologize here. My computer keeps going to the screensaver. Next we have, is it Reginald Akers? Did I get that right, sir? That's right. All right. Good, off to a good start. Thank you for coming out this evening.
I've been a resident for 40 years here, and I'm retired. And Colerain to me is a beautiful place. Since I have the time now, I'm riding around town. If I'm going downtown, I'm looking around. We're virtually still a very clean neighborhood. School system is great. My kids went here. They're on doing great things. But I'm not here for that. What I was here for was, I got this letter that the township virtually okayed this ESP energy for all residents. You have 59,397 residents in this area. And I kind of disagree with that, because all of us have had these entities come to our house and say that the gas and electric or gas or whatever is cheaper. I'm gonna give you a scenario. Let's say 20%, $20 off on your gas or electric. They don't have anything. Duke has everything that we need. And it's something that I remember back when I was a business for myself. This was like Cincinnati Bell. Cincinnati Bell and organizations like this, they always call that a monopoly. So they give these little companies an edge in to, I guess, kind of help or at least say that they're doing something. They don't own nothing. Duke has every pipe, every electric. These companies just go in and they're giving them a smidget to more or less say that we're getting a discount. You're not. I've used this, I've done this twice, and both times I went back to Duke because I realized my bill is higher. They're higher. You have fees. Duke still has everything there. So what I really wanted to say was, I don't understand how anyone here hasn't been through this before. Your bill is higher when you add these little entities in there, because Duke is still going to charge you the same thing, plus with these extra fees. Now I called them, told them I didn't want it. But what I wanted to know was, is there kickbacks coming back here from these little companies or what? Because I don't understand how you can say, I mean, they can come in and sound good. I would say for the board to say, well, I'll give you the opportunity to present your case to them, to all the residents here. But more or less just to say, well, I'm gonna say it's okay for everybody in my area to go along with this. That's what I mainly came here for, because I just didn't like the idea that this is going to happen for everybody here. And a lot of times people don't know what this is about until they actually look at it and might be into it for 2 or 3 months. They see all these fees. That actually brings your bill up. Thank you. That's what I came just to see, and that's what I'd like to know.
What is the name on your letter that you received?
It's from
American Electric Power?
EAP Energy.
AEP?
Yeah, AEP.
That's the same one I have. I was gonna address that when we got to that point.
Do you agree with that?
I'll address it when I get to that
Oh,
point.
okay, I'm through.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we'll go through all the citizen concerns at the end of, we have 3 more citizen comments, and we'll respond to that then. Okay. Next, Ms. Moore. Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to speak about a couple of positions in the township, and I am not talking about the employee. I have nothing against the employees. I'm talking about the position. Going back to the last meeting on August 23rd, I mentioned an employee who resigned after 4 months. Mr. Mills said vacation is accrued, which is not true. A new employee receives 2 weeks of vacation on day 1. This employee received an extra $2,038.40 in vacation benefits for working here for 4 months. I really think the board should reconsider that arrangement. I presented several invoices that I feel require additional explanation. You asked the administrator if the town can require this. Would you pay an invoice without any information? Would you pay a credit card statement with just an amount? To date, that had no date, where the purchase was, or the amount of each transaction. There's no standard template for an invoice. Each company has their own invoice. However, you should have the ability to require certain content on an invoice. It's just negligence, in my opinion. You're spending our money without knowing or caring what we're paying for. The invoice criteria is what you make it, not them. On August the 9th, an employee was promoted from event coordinator to assistant public services director by an approval vote of 2 trustees. On August 23rd, Mr. Wallert said that position had been paused for now, waiting on applications for assistant administrator. That position, assistant public services director, remains on the roster. What is the status of that? If the position is not being filled as you voted, shouldn't you have to correct that by motion of the board along with the pay status? I requested this information and was told that there was no change of status for this employee. I have copies of organizational charts, which you've been using for years. Every time you add an employee or change something, and the org chart was always approved. However, last meeting and now this meeting, there is no org chart. Based on the resolution you intend to pass regarding this matter, the resolution states, whereas policy 1.3, Colerain Township Employment Process Policy, requires that the organizational chart and roster be formally adopted by the Board of Trustees. Blah, blah, blah. All resolutions state that the board majority vote hereby dispenses with the requirement that the resolution be read on 2 separate days and hereby authorizes the adoption of the resolution upon its first reading. Well, there is no first reading. And I think more and more that the township should read a resolution at least one time. In the memorandum of understanding with Waycross Media, are you aware that special meetings and CIC meetings recordings are not in there. They're excluded from that memorandum of understanding. All meetings should be recorded from gavel to gavel, beginning to end. Here again, we're paying for this service, and they get to pick what they'll do. For the school resource officer, how many hours a year are spent working in the school, and what does this employee do when school is out? The new hire accounting specialist's annual salary is $49,982.40 based on $24.03 per hour. The consent page states a salary of $50,000. I'm asking that you differentiate between salary and hourly employees. Salary employees have an hourly amount multiplied by 2,080 hours, and that should be the figure approved. In some cases, the employee is paid a little more or paid a little less by your current process. There's no reason to misstate it. We know there's a difference between hourly and salary. If it's a salary job making $65 an hour, that should be approved at a salary of $145,600. Salary and hourly don't follow the same rules. I'll be quick here. Mr. Solomon is going to be hired as a full-time attorney at $130,000 with all benefits. Has anyone figured out what that total is, including those benefits? Will he have an office in the building? Will he be working for anyone else at the same time, like his law firm or other communities as their law director? And one last thing regarding Northgate Mall, what are the hours that the police will service the mall? That's all I have, but I do have a couple of copies here that I made for you, just to give you for information.
Thank you, ma'am. Right, next on the agenda, Chris Hinson. Good evening. How you doing?
Hello. I don't know whether this goes up or down. Okay. First, for anyone that hasn't signed up for a Clean Up to Green Up, your opportunity is this Saturday. We're cleaning up the Bethel Cemetery at Springdale and Gaines from 9 to 1, so anybody that wants to show up can. And speaking of cemeteries, we're doing our annual cemetery walk. The Historical Society sponsors every year. It will be at Beavis Cedar Grove on the 24th from 10 to 2. We'll have, thanks to Dana, we'll have some costumed actors at the different grave sites as well as tours. And then you get a self-guided tour booklet to do the other historical cemeteries in Colerain Township. So that's the last Saturday of the month at Beavis Cedar Grove. But tonight I'm here to speak about the Dean Family Cemetery. On behalf of the Colerain Historical Society, this is an ongoing issue since 2018 with the first excavation of the Magnolia Woods subdivision. We've been going back and forth. I've met with Marty Kohler, Jared, Jeff Mills, Jeff Weckbach. I've met with everybody possible in the last 4 years. The timeline recently has become more urgent because they're now selling the properties right around the cemetery, which now looks somewhat like a Dr. Seuss island in the sky. I met with Jared for 2 hours on the 3rd. He sent a letter to the recent developer, and because the developer's in the final stage selling the property that butts up against the cemetery. We ask that the developer, at least at the very minimum, put the cemetery back in some semblance of the way they found it. Because now I've provided you with some pictures, there have been updated photos, but they have excavated all the stones, they have knocked down the monument that was there, and the 2 brick pillars that entered the cemetery area are now in rubble. And according to the recorders, the Hamilton County Recorder has designated this as a historic cemetery within Colerain Township. And their drawings of this say that there are 4 rows of burials in front of the tree. Now, at 10 feet apiece, that's 40 feet. There might be 15 feet in front of that tree. So I'm not sure what they did there. But the Hamilton County Recorder has designated this a historic cemetery within the township, which is my understanding. If it's historic, it falls under the jurisdiction of the township. Now, I've recently heard that Fisher Homes owns the deed to the property. But if it's been designated historic, then it seems like even if Fisher owns it, there are some things they need to do with it. They responded just yesterday to Jared's letter, and the developer has stated in no uncertain terms that they do not want to draw attention to the cemetery, so they will be putting up a retaining wall, no fence, no signage, and no memorial stones. And that's the last they want to hear about it. We as the Historical Society feel this is unacceptable. They've desecrated the remains of these individuals dating back to 1852, and we're here before the township to say, what can we do next? Questions?
Nope, I think we'll be able to address this at the end as well. Mr. Weckbach and I have already spoken in some length about this issue.
Okay, thank you.
And last on the list, Greater Northbrook. Good evening.
So, Amanda Beckman, you know me, Laura McMullen, County Goff, Laura Dakin. So we are here to talk about what just happened this weekend. This is pretty echoey. It was a big moment for Greater Northbrook. It's something we had been working on for 3 years, almost 4. It was a big item in our strategic plan. We started working with Jeff Mills and those that were in public services over the years, but just have some thank yous to give, basically. So first, Jeff Weckbach, many meetings over the past year to plan and execute this. The individuals in your public services department are absolutely amazing. So first, Tawana. But if you weren't involved in that, you wouldn't realize. So there were 77 plants. We initially thought we were going to go in with shovels and dig 77 holes. And they went out the day before our event and pre-dug every hole there. So we just had to make them a little bit larger. And we were finished planting 77 plants in 1 hour. So to Tawana, Roger, Jeff, Junior, Rick, and Mike, thank you. Officer Henry Boyd, he is just invaluable. I know he just got Officer of the Year, but don't ever let that man go. He's amazing. Colerain Police and Fire for what they did, Colerain Chamber of Commerce, plant expert Patty Moravec, who was there, and wow, she's a firecracker. Love it. Early on, we worked with Queen City Pollinator Project to help identify the correct plants that we should install for the type of pollinators that we wanted to attract. So thanks to that nonprofit. And then just a thank you to the many, 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 many volunteers who came out. It was bright and early that morning. We ended up, because of public services, digging those holes, we were actually able to get a bunch of trash out of the Mill Creek and edge the sidewalks. On a real quick side note, I want to say to my niece Abby, who always shows up for Greater Northbrook. She's from Monroe, but she's my girl. She saved the day on Sunday, and just want to say that I appreciate and love her because she's amazing. And then to the members of a Greater Northbrook, this is half of us. You guys are rock stars for the big and small things that you do for Colerain. And then to our community, this for 6 years has been a topic at our community meetings. So just want to say that the sky's the limit, and we will all keep working together to bring a sustainable change to our community. So thank you for that. And then because, we have work to do while we're up here while we're speaking, congrats to Jeff and Chief Cody on your new positions, to Jim Bowman for being Firefighter of the Year, mentioned Henry Boyd, total rock star there, and he works hard for Northbrook even on his days off. We can pick up the phone and call him, and he will be there to help us. And then the business part of this. We're a year into speed cushions on Niagara, and they are amazing. They are temporary. We need to start working on making them permanent, multiplying them, and spreading some kind of traffic calming throughout Colerain. So if we can bump that up on your priority list, we need to work on traffic calming. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you to Tawana and Public Services. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to make my last final note here. Mr. Weckbeck will go through some of the questions. So I think we've, with Mr. Bryant, I think we've got that information. We're going to follow up, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, and one other note on that too, Mr. Bryant, as you see some of those issues with parking illegally in the right-of-way and various items like that, please call 321 COPS. Those are things that we can address in those moments, and we've got officers on duty 24/7. So that's the best way. We'll dispatch someone out, and if they're parked over the sidewalk, they're not allowed to be there, and that's one way that our PD can do something to assist there.
Especially if it's impeding a school pickup of school children.
On
I
the
think
sidewalk, whatever
yeah.
it might be.
Ms. Wright talked about 30 of the notices of violations have been completed out of 182. Why the discrepancy? I don't know where the bill left off. I'm assuming that there's more bills coming, and I know for a fact that one of the things we put on 2 meetings ago in Vernier, it still hasn't been done yet, so I don't know if they're just overwhelmed, and I know that we've had a lot of rain. Is that?
That's my understanding, is the contractor is behind, but when they do get out, they try to do large batches of them, and that's why when we see a bill, usually there's a lot of properties on one bill instead of on multiple bills. So.
And just a side note on that Vernier lot, I was driving by yesterday, and there were 2, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12-year-old kids, and they had their lawnmower out, and they were cutting the grass. So I went to their houses, and their parents weren't home, but I dropped a note. You might see them on the agenda, because I asked the one kid, I'm like, what are you doing this for? He goes, I'm tired of looking at it. And I'm like, thank you so much. And they're like, sir, and I'm like, no, that's, using sir on me that doesn't fit, but thank you for what you're doing. So
the other thing to keep in mind too, and I'm putting a plug out there, we've got some vacancies in code enforcement, and so to the extent that we can get those roles filled, that will help. But I'm not saying that, but just generally speaking, for anybody that's watching or listening, if they know of somebody who might be interested in a part-time or full-time job, aiding and assisting in these, that would be certainly send them our way.
All right, public service with the motion adopting the road plan, why the lowest? It's been my experience through here and in North College Hill, there's about 5 or 6 different companies that do this, and it's the same 5 or 6 companies, and typically we go for the lowest. That's
in our rule of sort of approach to bids is lowest and best bid. Because sometimes the lowest bid is not the best bid, and that's why then we do due diligence, and there's state law around that if the lowest bid is not the best bid, usually you've got to be able to justify in some way, shape, or form why company B is so much more qualified than company C. Now, there could be rules and parameters that say the board would prefer to keep in mind. So let's say a criteria that the board would like to consider is local first. So if you're not in Colerain, that puts you down the list. Those are rules and things that you could put in place that could help to determine lowest and best bid.
We had the question about Mr. McElravy. The contract is a new norm. His contract expired. There are a number of positions within the administrative that are contractual.
There are 4 total positions that are contracted. It is the administrator, assistant administrator, finance director, and law director.
With regard to Waycross, and I don't know if I maybe misunderstood, the contract doesn't expire for 6 months. We do let it ride out. The new contract would then pick up where the last one left off. I think it's just a desire of the board to not wait till the last minute on those things. And typically, if it expires on whatever it was, December 31st, the new contract doesn't go into effect till January 1st, but we don't usually sign it until that point or around that point. We don't sign it like today.
To the extent that you all motion to authorize, I believe we probably would sign it sooner rather than later.
It helps with planning for equipment and technology upgrades.
Yep, and with a lot of these items, if a contractor reaches out to us and we review the contract and we think it makes sense to us, we'll bring them forward. And it's certainly at the leisure of the board that if they prefer to table something for an extended period of time, we can always do that.
And this question came up from Ms. Moore and Ms. Wright. The idea of Mr. Solomon is an employee. I know that there was some discussion. You did the negotiations on this, the discussion about what is covered under a contract versus what's covered under an employee, and there was some give and take in negotiations there, and perhaps you could.
Yeah, so one of the biggest gives to the township that we got as part of this agreement was some additional work outside of our cap. So right now, the way that our current legal services contract is drawn up is that up to $130,000 of inside, criminal work and things like that. But if we were to go to say, want to become more aggressive on some of our zoning violations, typically we have to take that through the Court of Common Pleas, and those civil cases are outside of our current scope of contract. So we would have to enter into additional agreements and spend more money outside of that cap as part of this, and the trade-off there is up to $25,000 worth of civil cases, so zoning cases that we could pursue for these illegal home businesses and some of those sorts of issues that we deal with on a regular basis. And so that was kind of the give and take throughout the negotiation.
And one of the things that is our property registration for commercial properties or vacant properties goes up. There's going to be more and more housing court things, and there's also, as we extend enforcement of some of these things, the gentleman that spoke about the business being run, that's outside the cap typically.
And limited home rule resolutions are all civil fines, so they would all have to go through a civil process. So to the extent that there are any specific resolutions that we're adopting under the limited home rule statute, we would have to go to common pleas for that.
Like, for instance,
rental
registration and nuisance, which we're going to be talking about here in a minute. Trash is always there, absolutely. It drives me nuts. I don't have an update on the smoothie on Springdale. I don't know if...
I was going to ask if Mr. Miller could speak to those when he does his administrative report.
I know I spoke to Mr. Miller about a week and a half ago about Grippos, and at that point they were still negotiating. They're still in the midst of negotiating. That are done. Okay, so you can give him better.
I think he could probably give an update on all 4 of those
Aldi's
items.
and Culver's too, so remind me if you don't. We'll get an update from Mr. Akers. The AEP Energy, we've actually had a number of people that contacted and said, what's taken so long with the agreement? So that is supplied through Duke equipment and pipes or whatever, but it's energy that's purchased from another party, but it's an opt-in. So if nobody calls them at all, not a single resident receives that service.
Yeah, so the way that the program works and the way that your energy bill is, you'll notice that there are 2 main charges. There's a delivery charge, and then there is a generation charge. The delivery charge is always going to be Duke because they own all the pipes. They own everything that's getting the electric or the gas to your home. The supply is where they can sometimes save dollars. And so that's a lot of those door-to-door vendors are saying, hey, we're a supplier of this. We generate our own natural gas. We have our plants where we do that. And then we sell it to Duke. And in this model, under the aggregation model, what we do is we pull the collective resources of as many of the 59,000 residents that we have, and we go out through a market, through a competitive bid, and we ask for different rates. And we compare that to the Duke rate, and the Duke rate will go up and down depending on the month. And what we try to do is find an option that provides a stable, flat, supply rate to everybody. So we try to find a fixed cost for a 1 to 3 year period. In this model, we were able to define AEP Energy. In the past, it was Constellation Energy, so it changes depending on who the lowest is. And what we're just trying to do is provide an option for residents. So that's part of the reason why it's an opt-out for free. We understand that if you prefer Duke, that you're
It's not
always
bid, right?
allowed to do that. No, it's opt-out.
Okay.
So it's a free opt-out. And something that I was going to offer to you as well, because I know this does come up, and I've gotten some of the phone calls. There is a way to be on a permanent opt-out list, and certainly if you wanted to shoot me an email or give me a call, I could help you get on that list. So,
And these are not, I mean, there's so many actors in this field, and many of them are bad actors, like the people that come door to door who have hidden fees for you to stop getting energy from them. That's part of all the process that the township does in order to kind of make sure that we don't end up with those bad actors. So I know some people have gotten burned, especially by the door-to-door people in the past, and that's always a concern. Number one, they shouldn't be going door-to-door, so we try to catch them there. So that's and you can definitely. I've never opted out, so I don't know. I've never looked at it that closely for my own personal, because I just don't use that much. I mean, I'm probably still running the air in January, so that's actually true. The vacation time at the start of employment versus accrual, if you could.
Yep. So out of all of our different bargaining units and employees, the way the policy reads is no one gets any vacation time when they start, except for the fire department. So the way the fire department CBA is structured, they get a prorated amount from their hire date to full-time to the conclusion of that calendar year. And then on January 1st, they get their prorated amount for that calendar year. And that's to really aid them as they go through vacation selection processes. All the other departments and employees get on each paycheck a small portion of vacation. Now, I'm not sure which employee it is that you're referencing, but I'd be happy to take a look at that and see, if that employee, if there was something weird going on there, or if maybe that was just their 4 months of not using the vacation and it's what they got paid out for. I'm not sure. I don't have that in front of me. So.
And for invoices, I mean, the template, it has to meet the auditor's requirements. I guess, if it's good enough for the people in the department receiving it, I mean, if it meets the auditor's requirements, I don't know. I mean, there's additional cost to the vendor to provide more standardized.
And as I've said in the past, to the extent that you all want us to go back on any particular vendor and ask, we can always make the ask. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to result in any different information.
With regard to the event coordinator to assistant public services director, yes, that we did remove that announcement position from the website. The position is still on the organizational chart because we haven't done away with the position, we've frozen it.
So I think the distinction is the director position is what went away, and that's what we took
I'm sorry,
off.
the director.
off
Yeah, the
website.
director.
Yes.
Yeah, I misspoke. Yeah, the director. Should that be taken off? It's still on the org chart.
It is not.
It is not now. Okay, but we took the position off last meeting. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, the CICs and special meetings not included for Waycross because it's based upon a certain amount of meetings, and that's an additional charge, right?
Well, and we can always go back to them and ask them if that would be the direction of the board, and
I think
that's
they've always covered it.
and they have. But
They have, yeah.
that's part of the benefit of bringing this forward now too. Is if there are other items that you would like for us to go back to Waycross and speak with to clarify, we can make that ask.
All right, and School resource officer, I don't know how many hours they work. In the summer, I assume that.
Yeah, oftentimes they're either assigned back to road patrol or they're assigned to special designations like bike patrol or some of those other items that are seasonal to begin with. So, Police Chief Cody could certainly speak more to that, but that's typically with our school resource officers. Now, the school safety officers are a little different, and he could probably speak to that as well.
All right, and we've talked about Mr. Solman, and Northgate Mall, we'll have Chief talk about. I know that there's some communications. I spoke to Mr. Miller about this, I think last week, who just left. With there was some that you provided, I think, us with an update with Northgate Mall and the meeting that they had with police hours, and they actually asked for more police, which was kind of interesting. But that's the status of that. For Ms. Henson, so we talked about this a little bit. This is a difficult situation when there's a family cemetery, and perhaps you can kind of share with our constituents and Ms. Henson what you shared with me.
So my understanding, and this is something that I'll certainly ask Scott to look at as well, is when it comes to these historic cemeteries, until it's our property, there's not a lot that we specifically can do. Now, if the recorder has deemed it a historic cemetery, I don't know exactly what that means legally, because I've just not dealt with a situation where we have a recorder deemed historic cemetery that is owned by someone else and we are not actively maintaining because it's not under our jurisdiction. So that's something that we can look at.
I've heard of that. That it's at the recorders. I think that's a separate. I think that would involve some more investigation.
And that's a distinction I hadn't heard before as well. So that's something I want to look into as well. So.
All right, and speed cushions. We haven't talked about this for a while. I know that we've gotten some data, and we'll be continue to get some data. And I think people have become used to them. There's some complaints early on about causing issues, and I don't think I've had a complaint in 3 months with regard to the speed cushions being there. And I'm glad to hear that what we have is working there, and we can. That was always a first step, and we can investigate that as well.
And we can certainly talk about that more later on in the agenda when we talk about the road maintenance plan, because the best time to install any of these devices is when we're already tearing up the roadway.
Absolutely. So I think I've handled those questions, and we have now administrative reports, with some of the questions being handled in administrative reports.
And like usual, we go through our monthly stats at this meeting, and I will ask Fire Chief Alan Walls to come forward.
Chief, welcome back again.
Good evening once again, everyone. It was encouraging for me to listen to a resident talk about the high level of care that she received from the fire department. I think it quite frankly speaks to the competence level of the individuals that we have in this township performing fire and EMS and law enforcement as well. Kind of segues into my first item here. So August the 25th in San Antonio, Texas, Captain Mike Kakey, Lieutenant Chris Prosser, and firefighter paramedic Tyler Abatello were awarded the Ben Franklin Award for Valor. It's the International Association of Fire Chiefs' most prestigious award, and it recognizes firefighters worldwide. This is an international award for expert training, leadership, heroic actions, and safe practices. I know we talked about it at my last administrative report, but that was back in July. I was absent at both of the meetings in August. Had a vacation plan with my wife for our first meeting, and we spent our vacation at Mercy West Hospital. And then I was in San Antonio with Captain Kakey and Lieutenant Prosser and firefighter medic Abatello, so it seems kind of new being back up here, but hopefully I don't sound new. But once again, that award there, I think it speaks to the degree of competence and the expertness of those who perform public safety here in the township. As far as as far as the incident response in August, there were 826 EMS incidents. There were 165 fire incidents. We made 42 incident responses into the Springfield Township EMS contract area. We had a building fire in the 9500 block of Maple Knoll with a $13,000 loss. Another one in the 2500 block of Grant with a $17,000 loss, and one in the 6800 block of Ripple with a $2,000 loss. So all told, in the month of August, property value lost was $32,000, but we saved $376,900. Our average response time for the first arrival of the first unit was 5 minutes and 10 seconds, and first unit on the scene in less than 6 minutes was 71%. And that is my administrative report, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
All right, up next is Police Chief Ed Cody.
Welcome back, Chief.
Good evening again. All right, let's see. Hopefully, I got all the questions here. I believe there was 2 core questions that were asked for me to address, but I believe one is actually 2 different classifications of our department that might be slightly confused. So, school resource officer. This is the full-time police officers that are through the contract with the school district. This is the Colerain High School SRO, Northwest High School SRO, the sergeant in charge of safety, security, and truancy, and then, safety and security, and then the officer that's in charge of Northwest Passage, which, forgive me, it has a new name now. I can't remember what the new name is, and then the truancy officer. So that's actually 4 officers handling those things. So the question is, how many hours do they work? They're 2080, they're full-time officers. During the summer, what do they do? School resource officer from Colerain and Northwest both went back to the road, and they worked and fell into line with 12-hour days, supplementing our 2 days. The other 2, Sergeant Hustle and OIC Rovers, were the bike patrol. So those are the 2 officers that fell directly into line, into bikes, and took care of that for us. The other classification is the school safety officer, which is a part-time position. The actual total number of hours is, forgive me, it's slipping my mind right now. I think it's in the 1350s, but I know it's under 1,400 hours. This is a part-time position. During the summer, they do not work. During in-service days, they do not work. Any holiday, even snow day, they are not working. So they're only there during the normal school hours. Northgate Mall detail hours, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Did I get all those questions correct? Did you have anything else on you?
That's it.
All right, so jumping into the report. Police Department for the month of August responded to 4,078 calls for service. So as you see, that puts us at 30,648 for the year. As I tell you over and over again, we're on pace to have a record-breaking year of over 45,000 calls for service. This is a 10% increase from August of last year. Of 4,000 calls, it's a 10% plus increase. That gives us at 132 calls per day. Our emergency response to calls, the emergency calls, is under 3 minutes. It's about 2 minutes and 58 seconds. We conducted, for the first time in over 2 years, over 200 traffic stops. We had 217 traffic stops, and we made, of that, 5 of which were OVI arrests. There were 3 uses of force, one of which was a takedown, where an officer just takes the individual to the ground and then puts them in custody, and the other 2 were OC spray, which is pepper spray. There was 1 traffic pursuit and 174 physical arrests made. We had 0 internal investigations open for the month. Directly into our code enforcement. Our code enforcement officers handled 198 inspections, 133 complaints, closed 65 violations, 19 total property maintenance violations, and 5 total zoning violations. Jumping into the impact team stats, of those 217 traffic stops, 50 of which were conducted alone just by the impact team. 14 arrests were made, 16 citations, 28 warnings, 30 warrants, attempted to serve 2 warrants. They seized 187 grams of marijuana. They made a fentanyl arrest, towed 11 vehicles, assisted the patrol units with 146 details. Officer Huntington deployed his K-9 twice. They had 17 targeted hours of patrol. So targeted patrol, this is where we ask them to go specifically to these locations and do certain activity, and then 4 hours of investigative hours. Is there any questions for the month?
Yeah, Chief, can you explain that it's not 10% increase in Colerain Township, it's across the state, US is,
This is directly, the number I'm providing is only in relation to Colerain Townships.
I think you, didn't you tell
But
me it was a
throughout the
trend?
state,
Yes.
there is a trend throughout the state and throughout the entire United States of increase of needs for police services.
Mhm.
And that's also a fairly large increase in overall crime rates, mostly property and violent crime rate.
Thank you so much. I love the impact team. And I think a lot of citizens love that because I keep hearing, more and more and more, and you just need to open up the papers and see that, we've had some really serious automobile accidents and it'll slow people down. I know that I just hit you with this maybe a couple days ago, but I wanted to follow up. One of the things that a couple of citizens approached me about was actually Chief Denny's retirement was the non-emergency phone number, the decision tree, that it was too complicated and too many options. Is that something that we've had a chance to look at? Or?
We're currently looking at it. We have to, the civilian supervisor, Kelly Hopewell, and I actually talked directly about this, and it is lengthy.
Okay.
So we're definitely looking at see if there's ways that we can at least shorten it up and see what we can do. I anticipate it being handled here in the next couple months.
Fantastic. That's it for me, Mr. Unger.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
Sure thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Board. So with the Public Services Report for the month to kick things off, exciting news. I was just informed, I think on Monday, yesterday, that we've concluded our 2022 road paving. So that project is wrapping up. They'll have some punch list items, but all the roads that we had torn up so that we could make them look better should be better at this point, which is great feedback to have. When you look at the monthly data here, when it comes to our total park visitors, that continues to do pretty well. It's within the sort of band of where we're wanting to be. We are seeing an uptick as expected in Clippard almost year over year. We did make that big change last year to cut the parking lot in half, which caused a little bit of a drop, but now folks are getting back to just use the park for what it is. The one that is down is Colerain, and that's one that I think we get a lot of walkers from the neighborhoods as well, and so our vehicle trackers don't necessarily pick that up. Public Works tracking, this is where we're at for the year, so as you can tell, we're doing a lot of pothole work. In the coming weeks, they're going to be out doing a lot of crack sealing, so they're going to be going back to some of those areas that we just repaved and making sure that we're using the tar to reseal the road as best as possible. And our litter collection, this is what our litter laborers do. So earlier when we were talking Clean Up Colerain, that was the volunteers. This is just the litter laborers, and last month they collected 283 bags of litter. So they're out there. It was a busy month, not as high as their peak, which was in May, but still a really great month for them in terms of amount of litter and trash that was collected. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
None at this time.
No,
if not, we'll
none
bring
from
up David Miller.
It's a big week, Mr. Miller. Cowboys, Bengals.
This is big. It's gonna be tough without.
He's a
that.
big Cowboys fan, so we'll send him flowers after they get beat.
Okay. Change the subject for 200. All right. Volume in development is still borderline record level pace. In the month of August, we had 61 zoning certificates. There were 26 new single-family homes. We had 10 commercial certificates, 14 solar, and then 11 others, so that's a total of 61. We had one case that was before the Board of Zoning Appeals. Sadly, the community transforming project for a chicken coop did not show. And so we're going to have to see what happens next month at the next meeting, but hopefully they will return. Dunlap Grove is having their official ribbon cutting this Thursday, and that's going to be at 4:30 p.m. Love to have you there if you have opportunity to make it. So that will be a good event. There's another one of their triplexes under construction right now that we have approved a number already in the neighborhood, but this is the next one that's under construction. The model home that is on the left, far left, closest to Springdale, is available for tours. I would assume the other two would be as well, but nonetheless, they're very nice products. I would be remiss, of course, excited to tell you that OKI, Regional Council of Governments, made their initial approval of our grant request for sidewalks on Pool Road between Colerain and Cheviot. And so we were initially awarded, and there'll be several more committees that'll go through, but they did announce $264,894 for Colerain Township for those sidewalks. So those will be on the south side of Pool, and that'll be a very important connector from Colerain to Cheviot for high school traffic. That'll be down Cheviot there. So we're excited about that. The questions that were issued earlier, Culver's is pretty much just DOA. I have talked to Lee and Associates there, John Thompson, that is offering that lot where they cleaned off the old Olive Garden. He said they've just gone radio silent, so he's put for sale sign up and it's available. Grippo's has had a problem with their contract with Income Realty, or Realty Income, who was the seller of the old Kroger at 6601 Colerain Avenue. The building had been vandalized and damaged a number of times. The seller was responsible under contract to put it in a specific condition before transfer, and so they've had to put off closing 3 times. Part of it, the majority of the reason, was because Duke Energy was going to be part of that repair process and getting the electricity back up. They had stripped a lot of copper out, and so I was able to get a hold of the right person at Duke, get them on it. They fixed that first week in September. And so this week, I think we've received 2 different dates. It's either they're going to close on Thursday or Friday of this week. So at that point, Grippo's will officially take ownership, and so that'll be good news there. The vacant lot between Goodyear and Spectrum has been sold, and it is scheduled for another credit union. So spoke to them on the seller on Friday, and that is the plan. I was hoping we could convince them to consider something different, given that we've got about 14 credit unions right there. So nonetheless, that is that's all on my list. Was there a 4th item?
No, but you and I talked about, just to fill people in on McCluskey.
So the lot at McCluskey was on the market for a while. They were asking a very high dollar amount on that, and Valvoline came in and was the winning offer on that. And so we have met with a Valvoline rep, and so what they're doing is just doing their due diligence on preparing that lot for the demo and the rebuild of I think it's a 3-bay oil change facility.
Do they plan on closing the one at
They didn't say. Okay. So I did not get any kind of sense that they were.
It's busy enough that they could have to every time I go by. It's pretty crowded. Any additional questions?
That's all I have.
Oh, Aldi.
So that has been in suspension as well for a little while, but I believe I saw a zoning certificate come through very recently, if not this week, last week on that, and so I think the church is probably still planning to be there. I think they've been fundraising just to try to do the rehab on that building to be able to get in there. So that's my understanding, that they're still planning to locate there in that building.
Additional?
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good luck finding a quarterback.
Oh, jeez.
And just for the administrative report, I want to extend a number of thank yous to different members of the community and township staff. We had a retirement in our public services department. Our longtime custodian, Dwight Logan, is going on to greener pastures and will be enjoying his probably 30 side hustles that he'll have once he is in retirement. If anybody knows Dwight, he's a busy guy and he does a lot of different things. And I know he'll be missed. He's a comedian on the side as well, so we'll probably start seeing him a little more often. Maybe he'll get on Netflix someday. Who knows? But I also wanted to celebrate both Jim Bowman and Henry Boyd, who were selected as the Firefighter of the Year and the Police Officer of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. Both these individuals come to work every day with, I mean, honestly, I think they're just so excited to be here, and they do fantastic work, and it shows. And I really appreciate everything that they do and everything that they do for this community. And then last but not least, the Amarillo Project. I mean, Northbrook hit it on the head. That took so many different people coming together, so many different partners, both internally and externally. Everybody from their group is what really made this vision a reality. They pushed us hard for it. And now moving forward, we're going to have this beautiful butterfly haven that's going to hopefully germinate those little butterflies all throughout the community and have something great for us all to look at. In terms of township staff, we did have a lot of our own staff show up for the event, including Roger Krebs, Rick Mock, Jeff Payne Jr., Lieutenant Hauser, Firefighter Adams, Firefighter Greenlee, Alan Walls, and Tawana Moulter. And so I really appreciate that they took the time out of their schedules to show up and help the community on a project that's really important as well. And with that, I will conclude administrative reports.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, for trustee reports?
Oh, no, I had some questions.
No, go ahead.
All right. Sorry. We've spoken at length about this. At first, we thought that the nuisance ordinance was going to be on this agenda, but it looks like there's been a couple of trip-ups legally, and I think we'll have it on the next meeting agenda.
Yeah, I believe the plan right now is to have a first reading of both that and a rental registration ordinance, or resolution, I should say, at the next meeting, with the second reading in October. These are pretty substantive types of resolutions that I think really deserve a lot of attention.
I agree 1,000%, and I'm so happy to have them make it to the agenda. You and I spoke as kind of almost like a community bonding event, with October being Breast Cancer Awareness, doing a breast cancer awareness blitz. I think it's it's something that every family faces, it seems like, and I know that you've talked to the department heads and we've gotten some fantastic ideas, and I appreciate that. And maybe you could give us a little bit of a kind of a heads up as to what that will look like. Yeah,
and honestly, when this was first proposed to the department directors, I think they all embraced it because, like you said, almost everybody has been touched by that awful thing. And I don't want to spoil too much, but we will have some pretty neat things around the buildings. We'll have staff that will be able to wear in fire. They can purchase some specific types of uniforms for those months to show their support, and you'll start to see some more things in the community, and we'll certainly highlight that a lot more in October to celebrate all those that have overcome it and to remember those who have unfortunately lost their lives to it.
And really celebrate the heroes that have fought it. And I think that, Colerain, if anything else, we're fighters. And, I think that reveals that. Just the way we approach things like that, and I think that would be a great event. About 6 or 8 months ago, you and I met to do a kind of a signature Veterans Day event, and I know the planning on that is moving right along, and maybe you could kind of give us a sneak peek at what that is going to look like.
Yep, and I want to pull up my calendar real quick to make sure I get the right date. So not on Veterans Day, but after Veterans Day on Thursday, November 17th, there's going to be a community event. It's going to be RSVP based because it will be a dinner, and it's going to be hosted in partnership with the YMCA. Currently, the YMCA does a lot of different programs where they offer dinners and different things like that for the senior services. And so it's going to be a nice, I think, combined effort between all of them. We've got a list of volunteers that are going to be attending the event to serve the meals, and it's just going to be a great way to really rally behind all those folks that have served our community in one of the best ways possible as a veteran. And I can't wait to be there to thank all of them individually and hope that we're able to have some great attendance. And I believe that there will be more to come on it as we move forward.
Absolutely, and I think that this will be a very personalized kind of event, and I think that that's really significant with that. We had also talked, and I kind of want to bring this to your attention now to see if we could start on the planning stages and in the events committee of bringing a signature event in the summer to Groesbeck, perhaps surrounded around the idea of the international theme that the report came back with, and I really don't have any more to ask this, and so let's get started working on that and let me know what you need.
Sure. We're due to have a follow-up sort of recap on 4th of July here soon, and that would be a great conversation to start there.
All right, and I'm almost finished, I promise. Recycle Day. Date, time, what?
Yep, so Recycle Day is coming up at the end of the month. I believe it's on the 24th. Let me see if I can pull up the exact hours, but it's here at our campus. It's a drive-through type of event where folks can show up and they can recycle their tires, their electronics, their, you name it, you could probably get rid of it that day.
It's from 8 to 2 that day. It's already gone out on Circle.
Circle, yep.
There you go. I was going to say 8 to something, and I didn't know what the last hour was, so 8 to 2.
Show that you're a resident.
You got to show your ID to show that you're a Colerain resident. That is correct. And we're only able to take a limited amount of tires per resident, so don't come with a truckload. We can only handle
There's
a
an
couple
additional
per.
charge on some of those items,
Yep,
like
some of
tires
those
and
items
television.
are not free because we have to deal with things like Freon and other hazardous chemicals.
And I know I think this went out on Circle too. Tomorrow's the Colerain Senior Health and Wellness Expo.
Yep.
At the Senior Center, and those hours are?
I believe it's 11 to 1.
Okay. And the last thing I have to ask during your report here, we're talking about new fire stations. We're having significant discussions with regard to public services and the amount of folks that we're losing, which I'll talk a little bit more in my trustee report. But to give us kind of a decision list of options, perhaps for next meeting we can have legislation on bonding one or both fire stations and look at that alternative as opposed to paying the cash, and just so that they're out there, because I know part of the thing is that we need to do if we're going to bond, we need to act quickly with interest rates. There's been some pushback from citizens who say, hey, I don't want to pay cash for this. I want this to go towards some of the things that may be involved with a levy, and reduce the amount of a levy potentially. So that discussion can go on then. So that's all I have.
And to clarify, it's 10 a.m. to 1 for the Senior Expo. Yep.
All right. Trustee reports. Did you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, as we mentioned, September 24th is Recycle Day. In regards to the citizen that came up with his letter that he got from American Electric Power, I've got the same letter. And if you look at your Duke energy bill, it used to all be one lump sum, and back in the late 1990s when Ohio deregulated their gas and electric and gave different companies the option to come in, we're just following state law that we've gone out and selected a vendor with a price. And I believe on this same letter it does mention that in November 2005, Colerain Township voters voted to have a gas aggregation program and an electric aggregation program. And if you look at your bill, you'll see there's a separate charge. It's an itemized bill now. There's a separate charge for delivery, which is the electric lines or gas mains that provide the conduit to get the energy from the gas main or from the utility pole to your house. Well, not the privately owned section of it. And then there's whoever wants to feed gas or electric into the grid, and that's the price we're buying is from American Electric Power, who has secured gas at 83.9 cents per the cubic foot unit price, which is more than twice what it was 3 years ago. And I think this contract originally expired in April or May, and we didn't want to sign. I think at one point it was up to 89 cents, and now it's down to 83 cents. But I think this is just as I've stated over several meetings in the past, this is just a result of our federal energy program trying to get away from our natural resources and get into more green renewables. And it's going to be very expensive. So anybody that's getting a gas or electric bill or gas and electric bill this fall, watch out. You're going to see your gas has gone way up. The town hall last week, I did come to that, and it was over in the senior center, and I just sat and listened. I was at the economic development table, and I heard a lot of different ideas, and I appreciate everyone who showed up for that. And in response to the ongoing discussion about building 2 new fire stations, we are getting $7.5 million in cash from the COVID relief funds, and I'm inclined to spend that on a one-time capital improvement. And I don't, if we're going to have operating funds to pay our police and fire, I don't think we should use a lump sum of cash towards that. It should be something that's built into the budget, that's coming in through our existing levies or an additional levy, and that's how you should plan to pay for your labor and for your police and fire. I'm just afraid if we don't spend that money, that $7.5 million, and pay cash for these buildings, that we'll never know, we'll never be able to really say whatever happened with that money or where it got distributed to. I mean, I'm sure we would if we got into the weeds of our budget, but I would rather purchase those buildings and have them built and not accrue any debt on those 2 buildings because we have cash to pay for them, and I'm not inclined to support selling bonds. Just let's get that out in front right now. So we have the cash, let's pay for those buildings and get them built and present them to the community as without spending any money on interest. And if we start accumulating, originally we talked about bonding out the whole amount, and it was going to almost double the cost of the buildings. But if we bonded it out over 30 years, and this is a real opportunity to show the citizens that we've done something with this money that's coming in. It'll be a good, hard, fixed asset, and we do need to replace those buildings, and I'm not inclined to support bonds for them since it has come up. And I think that is all I had. So thank you, Matt.
Okay.
You know what, Kathy, I did want to address the cemetery thing real quick. Chris, I was out there back when you first brought this up to me a few years ago, and the cemetery was there, and some of it was broken down, and I know we talked earlier today about it, and this diagram you presented clearly shows the site as having open space, and I guess that's where the cemetery is, in the middle of that big property, and I'm certainly in favor of maintaining that historical area, because I don't believe in digging up cemeteries, and I realize there's probably a financial incentive for the developer to minimize that, or as you said, you know, he doesn't want people to even know that it's there. You can't hide such a thing, and it does need to be maintained, and I think you mentioned that there might be a zoning issue with lot 45 as it shows on here, and I'm not an attorney, I don't know what the law is on it, but I would certainly follow up with our zoning if you think they're going to the zoning board, which is different than the trustee board, so.
On that map, the little words there say gravestone.
Right, it says headstone at ground level. I notice there's a lot of elevation lines on here, and each one of those lines should represent a 2-foot change in elevation, and my recollection out of that lot is a lot of it goes like that anyway. The ups and downs. Well, yeah, they've graded a lot of it out. I didn't know if this, and we can talk offline about it, but I didn't know if this was the final approved plan or the existing grades. I think this was the grades before the developer ever showed up. But I'm certainly in favor of preserving that important part of Colerain Township history. Thanks, Matt. Sorry about that, Kathy.
I was out today and looking at, there's not a cemetery anymore there. You look at the piece of property, it looks like a pile of rubble. The land that you're talking about, it's a big compost. So yeah, we did talk to Scott today about maybe looking into this further from the township. And once again, it was a great, I guess, September so far. Germania had their 50th anniversary, and what about record numbers coming, people coming into Germania. Vinnie Collette was last weekend. Weather held out Friday and Saturday. Sunday was not so great, but we also got Donna Schwaben coming up. So some great new events that are coming up that are going to be up. Let me see. And the other thing I wanted to address was we've had a lot of calls about the zombie deers. I did talk to a retired game warden. What people don't know is, I did not know, Hamilton County, Butler County, and Claremont County do not have game wardens. So I found a retired game warden, and he did say that is a transferable disease to a human. So I know bow season is coming up next week, so some people were wanting the township to address some of the hunters about how they field dress and if there's any elements of disease people can get, and he assured me it's not transferable to humans. He said that the deer are getting them from stagnant water. They have what's called hemorrhagic fever. That's why they go towards water and drink. So we have had some calls about some the dead deers and very terrible smells, and they recommend to just go out and buy some lime and put on it. Colerain Township is not responsible for picking up any of these dead deer on private property. If it's on our roadways or, I guess, in parks, we're responsible for them. And I'm good. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you. Hemorrhagic fever, that
Hemorrhagic fever, yes.
humans can get that. I've seen that on Naked and
Well,
Afraid.
they said their fevers are so high, that's why they have to go to water.
Yeah. And, that's,
And by the way, I wanted to thank the Northbrook community, greater community. I wish a lot of our other subdivisions would find what you implement and make every community and suburb what you guys do. You should pat yourselves on the back.
all right, so it's been a busy 2 weeks. August 29th, I in my role as president of Board of Trustees, I did Jeff Mills's exit interview. Provided that to Mr. Weckbach earlier today. September 1st, I attended the ceremony for the new Cincinnati new city manager. Had a little bit of time to network with some of the folks there and just see how things are being done in the city, including with the individual who also sits on the board of solid waste. We talked trash and talked about trash for a long time. September 1st, I met with Chief Wells for a significant amount of time and talked about some of the challenges that we're facing in the fire department with retention and recruitment. And I think that these numbers are updated now, but since 2020, we have lost 48 part-time fire EMS and 22 full-time, and that's in less than 2 years. What I asked both, and this will follow with Chief Cody too, is I asked for some kind of estimate on onboarding and training and what it costs to, I guess in business terms they would call it acquisition cost, but this acquisition is a firefighter or a police officer, and we've spent, based on 48 part-time, 22 full-time, about $1 million on that onboarding. And the interesting thing is, if you kind of dig down, it's hard with fire because they have the part-time, but I feel that I get basically the same number from fire and police, which makes it kind of interesting. September 6th, I met with the police chief and staff with regard to some of the challenges they're facing. It was 27 police officers lost since 2020, and by today it was 30, which is just incredible. Again, that breaks down to $75,000 per officer in onboarding and training. And you know, I think as a board that we need to address this. There's significant safety concerns in both fire and police with this constant turnover. I think there's significant financial concerns with it and how it impacts what we pay out for those services. And the thing that's either frustrating or hard to deal with is that these things, they're not line item budget items. So we don't have a line that says onboarding, but we do have people that train, and we do spend new money for new uniforms, new equipment, and that I don't like funds that just kind of dissipate, and we can't really get a firm grasp on where they belong, and that's why I like getting that data. On September 12th, then I returned to the fire department. I think they're probably tired of seeing me. Met with Assistant Fire Chief Mueller and dealing with some of the things, what's being referred to today as mobile community health care or community paramedicine. Part of my goal is to move. I think Colerain Township has the right type of department to deal with this and to work for more community paramedicine. And basically what that means, instead of waiting for somebody to call 911, is to go out and be proactive. And we did that once a couple of years ago with the fall prevention program, and that provided some significant results. There are other things that we can do, and I just got a list today from Chief Walls, so when they run a call, which hospital they go to, because it can be, I think, a revenue generator to work with the hospitals to do a readmission reduction program. Basically, the way it works is that if I go to the hospital, if I go to Bethesda North and in less than 30 days I'm readmitted for the same thing, what they can bill Medicare and Medicaid goes way down significantly. They lose a lot of revenue because the idea is, well, you didn't fix it the first time, he's back. There is a way to have a community paramedicine program that maybe stops that, has our folks go out and we partner with the hospitals on kind of a revenue stream to get money in for us to go out and for them to pay for the firefighters and EMS to go out and be proactive in that. And I'm very much interested in bringing the fall prevention program back as kind of a first step to this. That saved a tremendous amount of calls, and part of the reason that we're losing firefighters, EMS, and police is the number of calls, the call volume, and kind of the idea that you're just swimming against the current, that you're facing the same thing over and over again, and I think that would improve morale. I talked to somebody at the governor's office who led me to an important website that anybody can use. It's called cutredtape.ohio.gov. And any state regulation that restricts your business, family, and daily life, if you go on that website, cutredtape.ohio.gov, you can tell them what that restriction is, and they have a board that looks at it, and they're trying to get rid of 30% of all regulations over the next few years. Fantastic with the pollinator garden. I couldn't make it, but I'm so happy that vision came to fruition, and it's just really a neat thing. I mean, it's the pollinator garden and the mural and things put a smile on my face, and I think that I'm not alone in that. Just a big congratulations to Jim Bowman, Firefighter of the Year, Henry Boyd, Police Officer of the Year. And the last thing I want to bring up, and I'm going to get it right this time, Eric Reifenberger works, as you may know, is a survivor, is a burn victim, and he works with a program called Cans to Care. And last year, he presented $1,021.68 to Chief Walls in the fire department as a Christmas gift from the people of Colerain, and it's going even bigger this year with adding Colerain High School and soon Northwest, the Colerain Township Vehicle Maintenance Department. You don't need to pay to join. All you need to do is find Eric Batman Reifenberger on Facebook or Colerain Cares on Facebook, and he will pick up recyclables, and the funds that come from that then get donated to the fire department.
And just to top that off, he just texted me from last year run to the recycling center were just $100 from topping last year's goal from this month. So Eric is an extremely dedicated person, comes and fills his truck up. It's all his own time and all his own gas money. So he is just...
I have met him sometimes at 3 a.m. to grab a couch off the side of the road, and it's just incredible the amount of energy he has, and what he does is, it's very happy, he works a different shift, so it's hard to make our schedules gel because by 3 a.m. I'm ready to get up for the day, and he's just getting home from his shift, so a big thanks to him. So thank you so much, and I think that I've covered it, and we will move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is new business, and we start off with public safety and the police department.
Welcome back, Chief.
All right, have our monthly resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. This resolution, it allows for the removal of uncontrolled vegetation and/or refuge for the following properties: 10-955 Pippin Road, 3715 Ben Hill Drive, 2571 High Grove Court, 6408 Springdale Road, 3636 Springdale Road, 7760 Cheviot Road, 2710 Haverhill Drive, 7068 Memory Lane, 3506 Pool Road. Recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
Are there any motions at this time?
I motion we approve the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at the properties mentioned by Chief Cody.
I second.
All right, any discussion?
None.
None for me. Mr. Baker, we'll move to the vote, please.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that resolution passes 3-0 to remove the uncontrolled vegetation and refuse at the properties Chief listed. Thank you, sir.
All right, Board, the next items are out of the Public Services Department, and I will be delivering those. The first item is a motion adopting the 2023 to 2027 road maintenance plan. So as you recall, in past years, we brought forward a 5-year road plan. So this is our plan for our 2-inch mill and fill that we plan on doing throughout the township. Again, we met with our internal staff. We evaluated our existing pavement condition index scores for the status of each roadway. And we've come up with a plan that fits within the budget that we've been using, which is a total budget of about $1.9 million for roadway improvements. I would recommend adoption of the motion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll motion to adopt the 2023 to 2027 road maintenance plan as provided in the meeting packet.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I've had, and it's exactly the way it should be. I've had no input on any of these streets. This is all selected by our Public Works
Right,
Department.
Yes, there's
People want to call you up and get their street bumped up, and they've used their rating system. I'm looking, I think it's Amarillo Court over there. One of those streets in that neighborhood is almost gravel, and I don't know that it looks like it's marked as a F-. I don't know that the 2-inch of pavement is going to fix that, but.
Yep. So Amarillo is actually intended to be a skip project that we're going to apply for skip dollars next year for, knowing that it takes an extra year before you get those dollars.
Okay, that's the one that just jumped off.
Some other issues with that street too, where we'll probably have to raise it a couple feet in order to solve some stormwater issues.
Right. Okay, but otherwise, we've had no, I don't know if you or Kathy have, but we never have any input on that, the list.
No, I was trying to pull it up to let people know where their streets are on the list.
And it is in the agenda.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
it's
they're
in the agenda package.
I know other comments from me.
Mr. Baker, we'll go ahead and do a vote on this.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that motion adopting 2023 to 2027 road maintenance plan passes. Next item, please.
The next item is a motion approving a maintenance agreement with ODOT for Colerain Avenue bus bays. So as part of the SORTA grant and as we're going through this process, ODOT requires us to enter into a maintenance agreement with them, agreeing that we are going to maintain that space and that infrastructure after we build it. And I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we approve the
ODOT.
the agreement with ODOT for the maintenance of the bus stops along Colerain US 27.
I second.
Any discussion, please?
No.
All right. So one thing we did talk about, Mr. Weckbach, just to reinforce this, no advertising.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. The motion to approve the maintenance agreement with ODOT for Colerain Avenue bus bays. Item C.
Item C is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute an agreement for street trees with custom landscaping for a total amount of $108,000, $108,780. I can't speak math today, so $108,780. Township went out to bid for this RFP. We had set aside $180,000 in the budget. We received 5 responses to the RFP, and those are included in your bid packet. Custom Landscape was the lowest bid, and I did some reference calls, and they appear to be a quality vendor. And I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute an agreement for street trees with custom landscaping for $108,780.
I second.
Any discussion?
And just for on the agenda, it's for Greater Northbrook and Groesbeck.
Yes, and we've got volunteers that are going out door to door, placing door hangers on those that are set to have some street trees installed, and they have an opt-out period up until we install the trees. So if you see those door hangers, don't ignore them. That's the best way to let us know if you really don't want a tree in front of your property.
So two things, one thing you just mentioned, the door hangers, and you can opt out, but the second thing that, the trees were chosen by an arborist.
Yes.
Is trees that aren't gonna attack your pipes. They're not weeping willows, they're gonna destroy your whole foundation.
Yes. And we've looked at utility lines to make sure that if you have overhead utilities, it's a smaller tree that's not going to grow up into them, causing later problems. So the arborist did a great job of identifying sites, and the sites that we've really focused on are the major corridors into some of the neighborhoods. So we think this is going to have a tremendous impact on beautifying our community.
And I would also, in response to a comment earlier, the price difference goes from 108,000 all the way up to 172,000, and then the other three are in the middle, and that is quite a difference. I would only say that people at this time in the year, when they're busy for the rest of the year, they'll bid higher because they know they wouldn't be able to take it on and bump off other jobs, and that might be the reason for it. I'm guessing we'll have somebody to inspect this as it goes along. Somebody from Public Works will take responsibility for this.
Yeah, and in the tree business, if you've got a larger nursery, sometimes these projects are easier for you to do because you're not going to have to go out and find somebody else to supplement the trees that you don't currently have in stock.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to address the difference in the 5 prices there.
All right, Mr. Baker.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes, that passes 3-0. A motion authorizing township administrator to execute agreement for street trees with custom landscaping for $108,780. Item D.
So this item is intended to be a discussion and potential action. So we went out and asked for an RFP to see who might want to clean our buildings. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we had our longtime custodian, who's a member of the Public Services Department and a member of that union, retired. And we wanted to just see if we were to keep this in-house or outsource it, what those costs might look like. We got 2 bids back in exploring the cost of what it has to have the employee, some of the potential safety concerns that the police has on having non-township employees in the offices. We were kind of at a crossroads and felt that this was best for you all to just discuss and decide if you want to take any action or no action, and we would certainly do whatever the board would like.
So at this point, it's my belief that we kind of hold off on this and not take action right now and investigate what other options that we have. So I guess it says discussion of potential actions. There's actually not a resolution for me to make a motion for. If somebody wants to take action, another trustee at this point, they would make a resolution to do so.
I'm just getting back to that page that had the price on it. It was $31.09 a month times 12 months is what, about $37,000?
Yep. So one vendor was
One vendor.
$37,000. The other vendor was $59,000.
The concern I think that the police have with the one vendor is that it's contracted. It's not employees of that company.
Yeah, and I think that's a general concern too. I mean, we could certainly run background checks on any employees that would be coming in and out of the door from other vendors, but if it's our employee, there's more control on that, and so I know that is one of the safety concerns, especially with sensitive materials related to police investigations and what have you.
I appreciate you getting the pricing on it, and the 59 is probably pretty close to a cost of an employee, and the 37,000 is probably a little less than the cost of an employee, but I would just as soon hold off on it too. But I mean, is somebody doing the cleaning right now?
Yes, we're using current members of Public Services. Someone will probably be designated into that capacity.
Okay, I'm fine holding off on
I'm
it.
good, holding off.
All right, next item E.
So the next item is a resolution authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for sidewalks on Pippin Road. As you all may recall, back in 2019, we applied for safety grant funding from the state of Ohio. We were successful in that grant, which was going to install sidewalks along Pippin to help connect our Northwest High School to various parts of the neighborhood. ODOT is requesting that we enter into this agreement so that we can move forward with construction in the upcoming years. And I would recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution for participation in the LPA ODOT-led project agreement for the Pippin Road sidewalk construction as noted in the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
No.
No.
Thank you, State of Ohio. All right, we'll call the vote.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. Resolution authorizing Township Administrator to execute an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for sidewalks on Pippin Avenue. Item F.
So the final item out of Public Services is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for Fort Colerain Phase 3. We're very appreciative of our partners at the State of Ohio that helped fund Phases 1 and 2 of Fort Colerain. This is going to be a $400,000 grant that was supported primarily by our legislatures, Cindy Abrams and Bill Blessing, to help replace the toddler lot that we have there. And so it will all be one contiguous, large-scale play space that kids of all ages will have the appropriate play area to use. And this is just some administrative work that we have to have approved in order to move forward with the grant. So I would recommend adoption of the motion.
Just it is advertised here in the agenda, and I would motion that we approve the motion authorizing the Township Administrator to enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for Fort Colerain Phase 3.
I second.
Any discussion?
Can't wait.
It does spell out there's an $8,000 fee, and then there's $392 is actually how much we get, so that's
Yes.
the $400,000. Okay. Thank you for going out and pursuing that grant to anyone that went out and did that.
I know there was some concern from the public about when the old stuff went down. There's new coming. I think it's well overdue to put some new stuff there.
Yeah, I think it's going to coordinate the park that we have for the older kids, for the younger ones. When you have multiple children, you can keep them together.
All right. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that motion passes 3-0, authorizing Township Administrator to enter into grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for Fort Colerain Phase 3. Development.
Good evening again. We have before you, for discussion purposes only, a facade improvement program. It's proposed. Stephen Springsteen, our development officer, has been working on this as one of his strategic initiatives this year. It's designed to strengthen our local businesses who just feel the need to reinvigorate their building's appearance. There are a number of local jurisdictions around us here in the region, Southwest Ohio, that are in the tri-state, really, that have these kinds of programs. Springfield Township, Sharonville, and Covington all have something very similar. Customers generally are more comfortable going into a building that feels cleaner, neater, that looks better, feels better. The proposed grant amount would be for 50% of project costs that would total $12,000. Again, then with a maximum reimbursement of 50%, so that'd be $6,000. So the building owner would have to approve. If he's leasing space, then the business would have to get approval from them. They would meet with Township Development Department. We would go over the plan, the budget, and then they would undertake the project. And once they are finished with that, bring back their receipts to show that they have made the purchase as the project was proposed, and then it would be a reimbursement grant to them. And so that's how this would work. Projects might include excuse me, lighting, windows, paint, signage, awnings, maybe tuck pointing on brick, other exterior renovations. And again, you can easily drive on any number of streets, particularly major corridors like Colerain Avenue, that just feel tired. And a program like this could very well help some of those neighborhoods just spruce up and maybe get a little pop out of it. It doesn't take much to look down the street here at Dillard's and what they did to subdivide that and put a facade on it, and it totally changed the feel and the building there. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. Something, it's not going to be at that kind of scale, of course, but nonetheless, Ross Just for Less did the same thing. Put a big
Right.
facade on that.
And
And so,
the building next to Leslie's there, they put that new facade, it makes that building look so much better also.
so this is the proposal. At this point, we don't have the money that was budgeted. There was no money budgeted at the beginning of this year, and so we bring this to you now, here in the fall. Never know how many participants we might have, and so wanted to get this before you as a first reading, have you take a look at it, provide any feedback. I'm happy to talk to you more about it. Certainly, Mr. Reckbach's had input. Stephen's done the yeoman's work on this, and we'd be happy to make some changes, consider different levels. I believe other jurisdictions provide up to $10,000. There's a good chance that we could budget in CDBG funds for next year if that was the proposal to do that and kick that off at the beginning of next year. So number of options there. So that's happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Part of a staffing, will people go, and the staffing of Colerain, your department, go out and go, hey, we have this, can we help
Yes.
make, so we're gonna have somebody going out to some of these businesses that look a little dilapidated.
Yep, we'd do outreach and just make sure they know. We'd prepare the flyers and try to do the marketing and say, hey, we've got this available. What do you think?
So one question I would like to pose to the board on this program as well is process. So let's say in terms of budget, we decide that this makes sense to kick off in 2023, and we budget dollars appropriately for it. Right now, the administrator is authorized to sign contracts up to $10,000. If this were a program that you all would prefer that those grant awards be something that you all make the final decision on, I think that that's an important distinction to make so that we can incorporate that into any final program guidelines for your all's consideration.
So would it go to zoning first to make sure it met the?
So in theory, it would go through an application process where zoning would do the initial review to make sure it meets the minimum criteria that we establish in the program. And then if you all wanted it to come to you, we could structure the program to come to you all for the actual vote on approval of any of these. Or if you feel that within the administrator's right, in that $10,000 limit that you have right now for contracts, you wanted that to sit here, that's fine too. Just let me know your preference.
So I prefer the oversight on it, but I don't know to what degree we can make it blind, so that, I don't know. Obviously, I don't want to know the owner. I really don't even want to know the building. I just want to know the project to avoid any kind of.
Probably gonna be very difficult to
Right,
make it blind.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not the owner though.
Yep.
That would take to keep that off of the application, it would take a process for me to go look it up. I think that's a start on it.
And it's important to know if that's the direction we want to go, because one of the things we'll have to make sure that we discuss with applicants for this program is campaign contributions, for example. So if there was, say, an owner that wanted to make a facade improvement under this program and maybe donated to 2 campaigns out of the 3, well, I would imagine that you all would likely recuse yourself from that vote, and then we would not be able to approve that. So that is an important consideration as well as we think about that. But that's something that we can discuss with applicants, and that may just mean that they can't apply. So.
Right. No, that's fair enough. So we have no.
So I don't know if you should bring them to us or not.
Okay. So
Based on that discussion.
Yeah.
I would say when you figure out what the budget is for it, or if you're planning on getting some outside grant dollars, I'd say figure out the budget for it, because I wouldn't want you approving, you know, several hundred of these at $6,000 a pop. So
Yeah.
I think we need to set a limit to what it's gonna be.
That's what my next question is, was there gonna put a limit on how many first come, first served, first 25? Do you have that
I think
on?
it clearly have to be first come, first served.
Right, I mean-
To the budget level.
And then the criteria of, you'll have final approval on the facade.
And so that's one of the questions for you all is how much are you comfortable with, especially as a first go at this program? 30,000 would mean potentially up to 5 applicants at the full value. If we're wanting to look at more dollars, that's something we could discuss too, but that would help so that as we're building budget and things like that.
What is the genesis of this? Have you had somebody approach you about this, or how did you come up with this?
No, I think it's a program that Jeff Mills brought to the table and
Is there
said,
some other community that's doing it?
You said
Is there some other community? that's-
Sharonville and
Sharon,
Sharonville, Covington, Springfield Township, they all have current programs underway.
and how many, have you taken a look at how many they've had and what the before and after shots were and how it improved the value of the neighborhood, or?
I did not dig into their programs. I certainly could do that and
I
bring
kind of would like to,
something back.
I would kind of like to see what their,
That's a good question. All right, let's do that and
Okay.
then bring it back for a second reading.
okay.
Sound like
Right, and if some business gets that, do we have to give them a 1099 for it, and what's the tax implications of it?
No, it's just a
grant.
grant to their business, and it matches, it's a reimbursement for monies that they've already spent. So it's not a 1099. Certainly a corporation doesn't get a 1099.
Okay. We all have to look at it and think about it.
Okay.
All right. All right, we'll go, I think that no action needed by us. We'll move on to administration.
We'll do the research on those other programs that
Okay.
are in the region and then bring back a report and
Okay.
even have pictures for Matt.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, board, the next items are in the administration department, and the first item is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute an employment agreement with Jeff McElravy as finance director. So Jeff has been in this capacity since November of 2019. His contract is up at the end of the year. He's been here for a lot of different things, including a number of audits. I think he's had an audit of some sort just about every year that he's been here. And he's really helped us kind of navigate all this complicated money that has been coming from the federal government related to the CARES Act, as well as the American Rescue Plan. This agreement would be set to run from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024, and I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we would approve the agreement for Jeff McElravy.
I'll second.
Go ahead. Second. Any discussion?
I think he's done an excellent job.
Glad to have him.
And glad to have him and another guy named Jeff.
Yeah.
That's the only drawback. I can live with that.
No, I think his office has made some significant gains in how they've set up the funds, and I appreciate that. And we're now, as we move into this, we're going to be leaning more on him to, as he said, look around corners to find where the stumbling blocks are. So that's.
No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. We authorize Township Administrator to execute an employment agreement with Jeff McElravy as Finance Director. We'll go on item B.
Item B will actually be presented by Finance Director McElravy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Good.
The next item before you is a resolution to increase appropriations in 2 funds. The first is an increase in the fund that we use to manage the lighting districts that are scattered throughout the township. This is a special assessment fund, and the increase in appropriations is by $60,000 to a total of $221,504.50, and the increase in appropriations is necessary to cover the increase in costs for electricity throughout the lighting districts. We certainly hope that it won't be necessary to expend the full 221,000, but we want to make sure that we have the flexibility to address those invoices as they come in on a monthly basis. The second increase is in one of our newer funds. This is Fund 2905. It's the TIF for the Northridge project. And this would increase appropriations in that fund by $300 for a total of $320. And this increase is necessary in order to pay the portion of the TIF proceeds that are due to the school district, the portion that is not actually paid by the Hamilton County auditor. When these TIFs first get set up, the way that the valuation is going to come in and how the auditor is going to participate in the distribution to the school district is very murky. So we take our best shot at it, and in this case, we need to make a small adjustment in order to be able to make that payment to the Northwest Local School District. So that is the staff recommendation for adoption of the resolution.
I motion we approve the resolution to adopt amended appropriations as presented by Jeff McElreavy.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
None.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. Resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations.
Thank you, Board.
Item C.
So item C is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a change order with KZF for the Colerain Avenue Sidewalk project in the amount of $23,125. So this project was originally approved in 2019. We got grant funding from the state of Ohio, or not from the state of Ohio, from the federal government through the Transportational Alternatives Grant in order to make streetscape and sidewalk improvements on Colerain Avenue from John Rose to Shady Crest. As our design firm has been going through this project, there have been multiple iterations that have been required at the request of ODOT, which has caused some cost overruns. They are requesting that we consider and adopt this change order, and I'm recommending adoption of the motion.
I motion that we approve or authorize the Township Administrator to execute the change order with KZF for the Colerain Avenue Sidewalk project for $23,125.
I'll second.
And I'll go ahead and comment. As I look at it, that changes it from $166,500 to $189,625.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because ODOT needs that level of detail on the plan.
Yeah, we had to submit the stage 2 plan drawing several different times to ODOT. They kept coming back with additional changes that they liked, were wanting to see almost every time.
One other change might be Jeff Mills, Township Administrator, and his email on the service.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe.
Yep.
And you've been getting Jeff's emails and...
Correct. I've been monitoring his email inbox.
No other comments.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. Motion authorizing Township Administrator to execute change order with KZF for Colerain Avenue Sidewalk project for $23,125.
All right, Board, the next item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Waycross for media services for $60,000 per year for 3 years. Waycross is currently who we use for broadcast of our trustee meetings, special events, and other media formats that they put together. They provide this through both cable access television as well online streaming as our meetings are going on. So this contract would renew the current agreement with Waycross for an additional 3 years, and I will recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Waycross for media services for $60,000 a year for 3 years.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Sure. In response to one of the comments earlier, it also says we will also proactively schedule coverage of important township events. And it does say
It says meeting.
that they will provide a DVD or digital copy of each trustee, zoning, and BZA meeting, as well as each township event as requested by Township Administration. They've historically covered our CIC meetings, and I believe that this pretty much covers anything in it. In addition, when this first came, long before I was here, in fact, with the previous fiscal officer, we were bringing in at the time over $700,000 a year in franchise fees. So this is pretty much paid for by people that subscribe to cable TV or internet service through Spectrum or the new Alta Fiber. And so this isn't necessarily tax dollars from the general fund. This is paid for by people's franchise fees. And I think having the cameras in here is an excellent thing. It allows people to see what's going on in the township, and Waycross does a phenomenal job for us. So.
I agree.
All right, no argument from me. Mr. Baker.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. Motion authorizing Township Administrator to execute agreement with Waycross for media services for $60,000 per year for 3 years. Item E.
So item E, Board, is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to enter into an agreement with Scott Solman as Law Director for $130,000 per year for 2 years. So Scott currently serves as the Assistant Law Director for Colerain Township. Our current agreement with Larry Barbier as the Township Law Director expires on December 31st, 2022. There are several changes proposed in this agreement, including an increase in the total wage from $120,000 to $130,000, the eligibility of Mr. Solman to contribute to OPERS, and the eligibility of Mr. Solman to participate in our health insurance program. Under this agreement, Sarah Schlid would be designated as the Assistant Law Director with the ability to serve in Scott's absence. In exchange for these services and added benefits, the township is set to receive an additional $25,000 in additional legal services that would be above and beyond the $130,000 annual cap. And of that amount, $5,000 will be eligible to roll over from year to year. So these dollars, I think, will make some significant progress on various zoning violations that we haven't been able to address without spending in the past. So I will recommend adoption of the motion.
I propose that we motion to authorize the Township Administrator to enter an agreement with Scott Solman as Law Director for $130,000 a year for 2 years.
I second.
All right, discussion, please.
Yes, one of the biggest problems we've had, and one of the things that we hear the most, is some really hardcore problem properties that we have in the township, like the one that was described by the public speaker earlier, like one that's over off of, I'm not going to say the address, but it's just south on Pippin Road off of Springdale, and a couple other ones, one on Hanley, and that's stuff that was never within our cap to pursue. And this will give us the resources to go after some of these real hardcore problem properties in the township, and something that I have heard from a lot of citizens, why don't you do something? And this one on Miles Road I'm not familiar with, but why don't you do something? Well, this is going to give us the resources to do it.
And we'll still have to be judicious with those cases, because
Right,
sometimes those cases can cost us over $25,000 just on one zoning
Right,
violation.
and I understand that, but it's
Right.
it's
Step
going to
in the right
allow us to do that. And it's in the last, that we've all been together here for almost a year now, and in the 5 years, that's been the biggest thing I've heard is, why don't you go after some of these hardcore problem cases, and this gets us heading in that direction. So I certainly support, and that's noted as item 4 on the contract. And what that does is after reaching the 130,000 cap, which generally happens about this time of year, then November and December are covered under the contract for contract items, so we don't get any additional billing for November and December. So. And I think if you look around at all the other townships and municipalities, we're still going to have the lowest legal bill of almost anybody else. No other
Comment?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with Mr. Solman and his representation, and I think continuity in terms of legal representation is always a significant issue. So Scott, even if I didn't like you, I'd be kind of hard pressed, because we're in the middle of a number of cases, and I don't want to change horses in the middle of the stream.
That's very positive, Matt. You're really making Scott feel good over
I know. Well, and I will point out in a kind of related thing, somebody sent me a text here that Jared Alec visited Lynn Fork today, and the gentleman from Lynn Fork still. Yes, they were there today taking pictures. So another step. All right, if there's no other comments, then,
And just one last comment, I didn't realize you were still sitting back there, but that's been kind of the reason we haven't gone after some of these real hardcore problems, because it was never covered in our legal contract, and it would require, the trustees to appropriate special funds to go after some of those. So I think this gives us the opportunity, and you're sitting here, and that's great, but there's some that have been around a long time. I guess yours has been around a long time, too. So,
I found from my experience, the only way you're gonna get these people is to hit them in their wallet. Just giving them a warning and doesn't seem to do the trick. You have to get them where their pocketbook is in order to make them.
well, that's what we're gonna do, so I'll let Matt
yeah,
take
and,
over here.
and, in terms of all truthfulness, Mr. Solomon's a bulldog, and he goes after those people, so I do appreciate that.
He is the Fighting Irish, right?
That's right. Well, the Fighting Irish, let's not go right there right now.
Yeah, that's still a little sore. That's a painful subject right now.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. Thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for agreeing to come aboard again.
Appreciate
So the final item in administration is a resolution modifying the organizational chart. And I'll start by saying the rationale here references a hire on the agenda, which I neglected to put on the agenda. So after this conversation and potential vote, if the board would entertain a motion to potentially amend the agenda to approve a new hire for the events coordinator position, that would certainly be appreciated by me and the potential staff person, but I digress from this item. So as we continue to evaluate jobs within our organization, and as we go through hiring processes, our current receptionist, Debbie Potzner, rose to the top of the list for the events coordinator position. Hiring her into that role will actually create a vacancy in our receptionist position, and so I went back and reviewed some of her tasks, spoke to members of the development department to see what their needs are, knowing where she sits and knowing that there is a lot of permit intake that happens there, and evaluated some of the organizational needs in terms of being able to move forward some of our large-scale strategic plan initiatives and some of our succession planning that frankly is needed across all departments. In my review and analysis, I felt that this role would be better served to transition from being solely considered by title a receptionist to a management analyst. In total, this person would be responsible for all the reception duties that currently are being done by Debbie, but also be required to be the permit intake specialist and then perform a number of special assignments, including higher level tasks and supporting the strategic plan. And with that, I would recommend adoption of the resolution, and I'm happy to answer questions as you all may have them.
I will, for the item that's on the agenda, I will motion that we approve the resolution modifying the organizational chart as described.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
So we're basically rolling 1 3/4 jobs into one, basically, or two jobs into one here. Okay. So there's a significant taxpayer savings.
Well, the intake job doesn't currently exist, so there's a lot of work that I know is currently going to Jared Allig that he could use some assistance on, as well as Stephen Springsteen and some others in the development office, so that at least as permits are coming in the door, they've got that built-in support as opposed to how it currently.
But she'll be doing the receptionist and the event coordinator.
No, I think so. The request would be for her to move into. So this is a separate item. Would be to hire her into the event coordinator role, which then creates the vacancy. And I'm recommending taking that vacancy and changing that.
Okay. All right.
And if the desire of the board is to leave it as a receptionist, we can go that route as well. And we'll post it as that type of position. But I thought I'd at least bring this forward for consideration.
I'm inclined to approve this before we get to the person that.
Yeah.
Right, that we're dealing with this first, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what we have. We have a motion and a second on it, so we can now call the question and vote on this.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0 to modify the organizational chart. So at this point, I'm going to make an amendment to I'm going to amend the agenda to motion to hire Debbie is,
Proper way to do that, Scott?
It's events coordinator.
yeah, as events coordinator. Yeah, I'm trying to read through the.
Okay.
Debbie is events coordinator.
And I've got a copy of a new hire form that I can give you all for consideration.
Rob, I'm waiting on the form.
So the motion would actually be to hire Debbie Potzner to serve as the events coordinator at an hourly rate of $24.04 per
All
hour.
the same, so there's 4 copies of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this an hourly or salary position?
It would be an hourly position.
40
Looks
hours a
like
week?
it's $24.04 an hour.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna withdraw this motion and do it proper here. I'm gonna motion to hire Debbie Potzner as events coordinator at the salary of $24.04 per hour. So then we would need a second then to,
I'll second.
all right. Discussion.
I would just like to apologize again for forgetting to include this in the packet.
And we can provide this to Mr. Baker so that we do have this as part of the.
Yep.
And that's okay to do it that way, Scott?
That's fine.
Okay. No other comments?
None.
None.
All right, we'll call the vote.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0. Congratulations, Ms. Potzner, on the new role. Old business, I do not think we have any.
Correct.
All right, which moves us to consent items. We have 4 consent items.
Yes, the 4 consent items are as follows: a donation acceptance to the fire and EMS department from the Campbell family in the amount of $100 in the form of Kroger gift cards, a new hire in the finance department for an accounting specialist, Miss Angela Weisenborn, at a rate at $24.03 per hour, a new hire in the police department, this is a police officer, Mr. Jordan Shannon, at a rate of $25.48 per hour, and a new hire in the police department, this is the school safety officer position, that would be a Mr. Brian Phillips at a rate of $33 per hour, and I would recommend approval of all consent items.
A motion that we approve the consent items as presented.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion with regard to the consent items?
Thank you to the Campbell family for the gift card. That's all.
All right,
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
yes, the consent items pass 3-0. With accepting the $100 gift card from the Campbell family, the new hire accounting specialist for the finance department, Angela Weisenborn, at $24.03 an hour, the new hire police officer, police department, Jordan Shannon, at $25.48 an hour, and the new hire school safety officer, police department, Brian Phillips, at $33 an hour. All right, fiscal office report.
Thank you, Board. First, the bank reconciliation for the month of July has been completed and is online with a adjusted bank balance as of July 31st of $35,382,815.37. And lastly, I would just like to reiterate, I know that we put it on Mr. McRavy's contract tonight, and I just want to reiterate how valuable that he is to me and to everyone. His knowledge of these funds kind of blows me away sometimes. So just wanted to throw that out there. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Weckbeck, I do not think we have a need for an additional executive session.
That is my understanding as well.
So that moves to number 15. I don't know if anybody wants to address that.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting at 9:52 p.m.
I'll second.
How about a vote?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, we are adjourned at 9:53. Gosh, that was a lot louder than I anticipated.